Marcus, or Bible for Truth. I want to talk about something that it's important, guys, because I don't want you to not get the free gift of eternal life just because you're believing lies and being deceived by the lying signs and wonders that you see in this world. You see, when the scriptures say God is no respecter of person, it actually means it. And so when it says all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, that means you've come short. And you need to understand that all have sinned and come short, meaning you can't reach it. So if you've come short of the glory, how do you get to the glory of God? You've come short. That means you have not obtained the glory of God. How do you get to the glory of God since you've come short? Let me show you. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Okay? All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. You need to actually believe this. You actually need to believe this. You need to believe this for every man. So if all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, and then it also says, no flesh shall glory in his presence. This is highly problematic if you believe in the lie of God having a chosen people according to the flesh. Because all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, and no flesh will glory in his presence. Not only that, maybe you say, well, that doesn't really mean anything. We'll just go here for those who say, well, that doesn't mean anything. Well, they that are in the flesh can't please God. How do you get around that? All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. They that are in the flesh can't please God. And we know all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And the other thing is, I am the Lord, that is my name, and my glory will I not give to another, neither my praise to graven images. How do you get around this, guys? How do you get around the fact that it says all have sinned and come short of the glory of God? All have sinned and come short, meaning you have not obtained it. Then it says no flesh will glory in his presence. And then he says, I will not give my glory unto another. And they that are in the flesh cannot please God. How do you get around that? How do you get around that? It's pretty hard to do that, right? And for one more thing, he says, neither my praise to graven images. Notice that, neither my praise. Listen. I want you to look at this. God that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands. Dwelleth not in temples made with hands. Now, if he doesn't dwell in temples made with hands, what prophecy are you looking at to get fulfilled in the so-called Middle East? Their whole excuse is that they can't build their temple to do their worship service. But how are they they're saying, well, right now we can't build our temple because the Dome of the Rock or some silly excuse. Well, we can't build the temple because right now there's a mosque or something, and that's going to set off a war. And you actually believe the stupidity. You don't think that's a collusion, a lie to fake and falsify prophecy? Oh, we can't build the temple. We can colonize the globalist liars can colonize the world, but for some reason that little thing they can't do that one thing. They just can't get the power. You really believe that lie? You really believe something that stupid, that silly? Well, here's the problem. Let's game theory this out. Let's think this out. If God says, I don't dwell in temples made with hands, and they're saying, well, we need to build a temple, what are they going to build it with? Seriously, what are they going to, how are they going to build it? It's going to be man-made. It's going to be a temple made with hands, which God doesn't. So this lie that what's stopping us from worshiping God is the fact that there's a temple, that we can't build our temple. Well, listen, neither is worship with men's hands. If they build a temple made with hands, God said, even if you build their temple, neither am I worship with men's hands. I mean, I want you to seriously think about this. You have people they're fighting amongst themselves with regards to who are the people of God. God is telling you, you've all sinned and come short of the glory of God. No flesh will glory in his presence. He won't give his glory to another. They in the flesh can't please God. God doesn't dwell in temples made with hands, neither is he worshipped with men's hands. And people are sitting here saying, the prophecy is over in the middle, so-called east, in the desert. They're right now gyrating against a wall, right? Just bowing back and forth at a wall, a building made with hands. And then they're in the flesh. And he says he's not even worshipped with men's hands. I mean, are you saying, well, okay, when he says not worship with men's hands, he just means all except for the so-called people who you identify as the chosen race, whether you consider yourself to be a so-called black Israelite or a so-called Ashkenazi. Either way, God's saying they that are in the flesh can't please God. He's not worshipped with men's hands. So the only other option is you have to say that you have, I don't know, is it worship with dogs' hands? But that would make you a beast. Or do you think you have the hands of God? That's the only other. If he says he's not worshipped with men's hands, well, what does that mean? Especially since it says they in the flesh can't please God. And then you say, well, okay, well, it says neither is worship with men's hands. Okay, well, how do we worship God? What's the deal? God's got to tell us, what can we do? What's the problem? Well, the problem is, they've invented this lie called the Trinity. And in the Trinity, they try to paint so-called God a certain color. And the reason why they invented the Trinity is because they don't want you to understand, which is so very clear, that God is a spirit. God simply comes, manifest, fashioned as the Son of Man. Don't count the flesh of man as being God. So when someone tells you we're God's chosen people and they're talking about their flesh, well, you're not God's chosen people, but you have been chosen for destruction, because all flesh will perish and men shall turn again to the dust, because no flesh will glory before him. See, when Jesus was talking to Nicodemus and said flesh and blood cannot inherit nor enter the kingdom of God, and you sit here and you read where it says in Acts 17, God doesn't dwell in temples made with hands, neither is he worshipped with men's hands. It shouldn't be too hard to figure out, well, wait a minute. Okay, I can see all throughout the scriptures that God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. It's the spirit that beareth witness, the spirit is truth. But many people want to make God like unto corruptible man. And so to lord over you, instead of understanding that God can come fashioned in the likeness of anyone who's been born again. But all of us who've actually believed the gospel, who have been born again, we're not in the flesh, but in the spirit. It's simply that our mortal body has been quickened, because God's going to come fashioned in the likeness of the old man, the Son of Man, which is not God. God is not a man that he should lie, neither the Son of Man that he should repent. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. They in the flesh can't please God. So if you saw me, if I came to you, you would only see an outward man. You would see a man, and that man could appear to you, say, oh, I see you according to the flesh. I see you as a so-called black man. And I'd say, well, I'm not in the flesh, but in the spirit. My life is hid in God. Since you seek a proof of Christ speaking in me, Christ in me, the hope of glory. So that's why you say, well, Christ is come in the flesh. And if you didn't believe that it was Christ in me, but it is Christ in me, that would make you an antichrist, because you're denying that Jesus Christ is come in the likeness of sinful flesh. Right? And then so I come to you and I preach the gospel to you. And then you say, I don't want to hear it. Then another person comes who looks completely different than me from the outward appearance. And the same thing. They're not in the flesh, but in the spirit. But their skin is a different color than mine. Maybe it's a woman, right? Maybe this person you'd identify as being, quote, Asian. Well, that Asian woman is not in the flesh, but in the spirit. And God's come in fashion in the likeness of that Asian woman. It's God that worketh in her to do and to will of his good pleasure, since you seek a proof of Christ speaking in her. Christ in her, the hope of glory. Remember, I won't give my glory to another. That's why she and I are found in him. We're not in the flesh, but in the spirit. Having not our own righteousness, the spirit is life because of righteousness. He won't give his glory to another. So we glory in who? In God. Our glory is in God. That's why we're found in him. Okay? So, because people don't understand these things, because people are ignorant of the truth, that's why there's lots of confusion. And you got to understand the gospel. A lot of people don't understand the gospel. Many people claim they're preaching the gospel. They don't actually understand what is the point. You're telling me, and I am telling you from the scriptures, that the flesh of Jesus is not God, because God is a spirit. The flesh of Jesus, which could die and did die, is mortal. Well, God is not mortal. This should be very evident to you. God is not mortal. And if you look at 1 Timothy 1:16 through 17, it'll tell you, look, don't count the flesh, because it's going to tell you here that the same pattern of salvation is for every single person, that you have to believe the gospel and you have to believe on the Lord Jesus Christ to be saved. You have to believe God, who gives the promise of eternal life to all those who understand that they're not going to be justified by the law. The law only shows that you're a sinner who comes short of the glory of God, who's going to perish, and you're not going to be justified by the law. That's what the law is there to show you, that you're not righteous. That's what the point of the law is, to show you that you're not righteous and that you must be saved by grace through faith. And the reason for the man Jesus dying for the sins of the whole world, paying the legal sin debt with his blood, is because nobody's going to be justified by the law. So he died. He was put to death under the law, made to be sin. Curses anyone that hangeth on a tree. Under the law. God isn't cursed. God isn't tired, hungry, sleepy. God can't die. The man Jesus can die. So hence, the blood of Jesus paid the legal sin debt for all men. So that was so that you can understand that, look, you're not going to be justified by the law. According to the law, you should be stoned. You offend one part of the law, you offended all parts of the law. Okay? According to the law, you should be stoned. Every man, woman, and child. It says, according to the law, you should be stoned. But God is patient, not willing that any should perish, and he takes no pleasure in the death of the wicked. So God is saying, up to the point where you hear the gospel, you're ignorant. So God winks at that ignorance, because God's like, you don't understand. So you're ignorant of the truth, that God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. And you're ignorant of God's righteousness, right? And so he's saying, look, you don't understand that my righteousness is a perfect righteousness. So if you're going to try to claim to be righteous, you have to be perfectly righteous. There's no, well, I broke part of the law and I offended, I'll do better tomorrow. God's no, you must be perfect. And he's saying, since you can't keep the law, you got to be born again by the word of God. Because the word of God is what? The words that I speak to you, they're a spirit and they're life. So God is explaining that you need to believe the gospel, because believing the gospel is you admitting that you can't be justified by the law, and that you need to be saved by grace through faith, understanding that God, who promised eternal life before the world began and cannot lie, will give you that free gift, because he looks at the heart and sees that you believe, and he's pleased, because it says without faith it's impossible to please God. But once you believe, it's his goodwill and what? Pleasure to give you the free gift of eternal life. So the man Jesus died for the sins of the whole world. He was buried. God, who's a spirit, quickened that mortal body, raised it from the dead. You say, well, why would he raise the mortal body? Why would God, if that body, and it was mortal, right? Only a mortal could die. So you can't then say, well, the body that was raised that had the wounds in the hands, look at the wounds in the hands, the side, the wounds in the feet. If it had wounds in the hands, that's the same body that died. Otherwise, why would it say he raised a dead body if it didn't die? So, and a body that can die is a what? Mortal body. The reason why is because it says he also quickened our mortal body. For what purpose would he quicken the mortal body, given that they in the flesh can't please him? Because God's going to come fashioned as a man. That's just the way it's done. Because think about it. How would you then have faith? How would you hear the gospel and believe and have to receive it by faith? It's because you say, well, I just see a man standing before me. And you're telling me God is working in you to do and to will of his good pleasure. And I'm like, yes, I'm not in the flesh, but in the spirit, because I'm not trying to do what? Glory in the flesh. I'm not trying to glory in the flesh. And all of us who've been born again, we understand the simple fact that what? We understand that we don't have to argue about foolish questions about genealogy and striving about the law, because we know that the children of the flesh, these are not the children of God, but the children of the promise, right? You have to believe by faith you're saved, not of works lest any man should boast. You have to believe the gospel, guys, to get the promise, the free gift of eternal life. And it says once you believe, you're born again of what? The incorruptible seed, the word of God. Okay? It's not as though the word of God had taken that effect. So it's explaining something to you, and it's also explaining, look, there's a fake Israel. You know how the scriptures say, I know them that say they're Jews and are not, but the synagogues of Satan? Well, if there are people who say they're Jews or not, well, guess what? There's going to be people who saying they're Israel, because Jews claim the home of the Jews is what? Israel, Jerusalem. So if there's fake Jews, then the fake Jews are going to do something. They're going to make a fake Israel and a fake Jerusalem to do what? To claim that this is prophecy being fulfilled. But all they're doing is colonizing. That's all they're doing. They're just lying to you. So I hope you understand that. Like the gospel is really important that you believe the gospel. Okay. So now that we've done that, we're gonna go here. Let's go here. There was a debate between this guy named Sicarii, right? Sicarii, he's one of these, they call him Hebrew Israelites. Sometimes some people call him Black Hebrew Israelites. And this guy, he's called himself Dr. Brown. He's a witch doctor. He's not a real doctor. But he calls himself Dr. Brown because he went to school and he got a piece of paper. And I guess he thinks that piece of paper means something. First of all, what's stupid about Dr. Brown, frankly, is that he thinks that he can go to some school and that makes him some kind of expert in the scriptures. First of all, it talked about they that are in the flesh can't even please God. So him going to school, doing the works of his flesh, studying in his flesh to try to get some knowledge, which God says he'll just ask and he'll give it to us. At least he'll give it to his children. I mean, first of all, the children of the flesh aren't children of God. So you're like, God is not your father unless you're born again. And God's called the father of spirits. See, just like it says the children of the flesh are not the children of God. Well, if they that are in the flesh can't please God, then apparently if the children of the flesh are not the children of God, then you have to understand that God is called the father of spirits because we have the gift of eternal life, right? Makes sense, right? Father of spirits. Each produces after his kind. But anyway, this guy, Dr. Brown, had his debate with Sicarii, and they, whatever. So another person came up. Another person whose name came up, I guess, was a person named, Dante Fortson. So I'm going to let you hear what, I want you to hear what Dante Fortson, what Dr. Brown is saying, and then I want you to hear what Dante Fortson is saying. Let's listen to Brown.
A series of recent events where a gentleman named Dante Fortson has been putting out videos for some time and books arguing that the original Israelites were black and that the heritage has been stolen and whitewashed, etc., etc. And because his name came up a lot, I did a debate with Guerrilla Hebrew Israelite leader. By the way, he and I are having some great private interaction, actually developing a friendship. He would tell you the same thing in the midst of our differences. But Dante Fortson's name came up a lot. So I saw a video that he had done, History, Science, and the Ashkenazi Jews. And it was done in a respectful tone. So I thought, okay, let me do a response to that. His video was like 12, 13 minutes. He's got much longer videos. But I did an in-depth response going back and forth on it, which was like almost an hour long. My video was called Dante Fortson, Ashkenazi Jews, and DNA. And in it, I said, hey, happy to interact. So he reached out privately to our ministry, and we began to interact. Now, I just want to say one thing, and I'm going to make this relevant, edifying, helpful for everybody about the question of black Jews, Hebrew Israelites. I want to emphasize again that the Israelites in the Old Testament were certainly people of color. They were not white Caucasians.
So this is what is baffling. You have to understand the duplicity of these devils. So he says, I want to start out in emphasizing that the ancient Israelites of the Bible were certainly people of color. They weren't white. Okay, so what was your debate about? Right? Because this man who's on your screen, he would be classified as white. No question. He would be classified as white. So if you're saying, well, there were people of color, then what's your debate about? It makes no sense. If so-called ancient Israelites can be people of color and they can look like this guy, Dr. Brown, they can be white, then how in the hell do you know who a Jew is? Especially given that in that fake lying sign and wonder in the Middle East called Israel, where the children of the flesh who aren't the children of God are being gathered, they're including people who they call secular Jews. Right? People who don't believe. So, and it's stupid because one, when you say secular, there's one Lord, one faith. And you got to be found in him, one baptism, found in the spirit, not in the flesh. God is the spirit, and they that worship him must worship in the spirit and truth, no flesh or glory before him. So it's saying that you're saved by grace through faith, not of works lest any man should boast. But when you believe, you're born again of the incorruptible seed, which is the word of God. The words I speak to their spirit and their life, that liveth and abideth forever. So if you believe, then that's your brother, because you're no longer a child of the flesh, you're a child of the promise, and all the children of the promise are spiritual children, the spiritual children of God, who's called the Father of spirits. So what he's saying, in essence, makes no sense. They're having an argument about the flesh, and he's bringing up DNA. For what purpose would you bring up DNA? So because when you bring up DNA, what you're talking about is you're talking about something pertaining to what? Bloodline. We go back to Acts 17:26. Remember, God doesn't dwell in temples made with hands, neither does he worship with man's hands. So we're going to go back. We're going to go back to the scripture one of the scriptures we started out with. When it says this, it says, listen, God that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord in heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands. And then he says, listen, neither is worship with men's hands. That's like saying he's not worshipped in the flesh. I'm not worshipped with men's hands. I'm not worshipped in the flesh. They that are in the flesh can't please God. Saying as though he needed anything, seeing that he, not they, not a trinity, give it to all life, breath, and all things. And here's the thing, when he's talking about DNA, and had made of one blood all nations of men, listen, to dwell on all the face of the earth, and had determined the times before appointed and the bounds of their habitation. The reason it says he's appointed the time and the bounds of their habitation is because he's saying, Nicodemus, guess what? Flesh and blood cannot inherit nor enter the kingdom of God. Flesh and blood cannot inherit nor enter the kingdom of God. You can't come into my house because you're not my children, because you're perishable. I don't want dead things in my house, things that die and things that perish and things that are corrupt and corrode and wither and fall away in my house, that go back to dust. No, God doesn't want, there's no dust in God's house. So he's saying you will go back to the dust, all flesh will perish and man shall turn again into the dust. And he's saying there's no dusties in my house. Simple, right? All you perish. Think about it. God, who's the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, who's eternal from everlasting to everlasting. He says, I give unto my sheep eternal life. I give unto them eternal life. Well, there's a criteria. There's something that you got to do before you get the free gift of eternal life. You just can't say, well, I'm one of God's chosen people because my mother and father had sex. This is what these guys are claiming. They may not say it that way. That's why they tried to make the Trinity. That's why they deified the flesh of Mary and claimed that, well, hypostatic union. There's three distinct persons. The second of the Trinity is Jesus, who's fully God, fully man, one person, two natures, co-equal, co-eternal. That's a lie. One person, two natures? That doesn't make sense because the man Jesus died, right? So you can't say co-eternal because co-eternal wouldn't have died. Only mortals die. Mortal is equated with temporal. Eternal is equated with immortal. The man Jesus died, so you can't say one person, two natures, co-equal, co-eternal. Makes no sense. That's a contradiction. So this is what they do. So they are hoping that you don't think about it or no one tells you the truth. That's what these guys are hoping. They're like, please don't think about this for more than 5 minutes. This is what they're hoping. So they have this huge debate, and the whole debate is a smokescreen. Because all that's going on is the Ashkenazi is keeping the children of the flesh that believe his lies in the flesh, who can't please God. And the so-called black Hebrew Israelites are keeping the people who want to believe his lies in the flesh. And he can't please God. So all these people believing these lies, they have a false God, so they're not going to be born again. And so they're going to just fight over this kingdom, kill one another, and perish and go back to the dust. And that's what God's saying. Okay, that's it. Nicodemus, flesh and blood cannot inherit nor enter the kingdom of God. So he said, it made of one blood all nations of men that dwell on the face of the earth. And here's the point. Remember, all men that dwell upon the face of the earth are made of one blood. And everybody has the same flesh, just in case you're wondering, because that whole thing with Adam and Eve, formed from the dust of the earth, everybody came from Adam. So it's the same flesh. So, and then it says, all men that dwell upon the face of the earth are made of one blood. But by the way, God's not worshipped with men's hands, and they in the flesh can't please God. No flesh will glory in his presence. And it says, you got to be born again by the Spirit. It says, which were born not of blood. All men that dwell upon the face of the earth are made of one blood. So he say, born not of blood, nor the will of the flesh, meaning it's not your parents having sex, nor the will of man, but of God. And you say, well, born of God, God's called the Father of spirits. Exactly. So born of God means you're born of what? Thou was born of flesh is flesh. Thou was born of spirit is spirit. The wind bloweth where it listeth, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but canst not tell whence it cometh, where did it come from, and where is it going. So is everyone that is born of the what? Born of the Spirit. God's Spirit. And he's saying you can't tell. I can follow you around in the flesh, and I can tell from whence you come and whither you go. I know you came from this world. I know you're going to perish and go back to the grave. No question. Now, can you look at me and tell that I have this eternal life, the Spirit of God in me? No, you can't. You can't. You can't. You can't see Christ in me, the hope of glory. You can listen to hear his voice, and then it'll be revealed, right? It'll be revealed through what they call the foolishness of what? Preaching, right? Since you seek a proof of Christ speaking in me. So, guys, it's really beautiful, but you got to understand there's some people going to lie to you. Now let's go back.
Number two, there was certainly a black presence in the Bible and certainly a black presence in Israel. My understanding is that the Israelites, by and large, would have been brown-skinned people, black among them, lighter, darker, etc. Hebrew Israelites would say they were all originally black. So that's the nature of that difference back.
So this is what they call the Great Compromise. But when they do the Great Compromise, you got to understand the money is flowing one way. See, this guy, so-called Dr. Brown and Sicarii, the hypocrite, you got to understand they had a debate. Right? They had a debate. And so Sicarii feels pretty good. He had a debate. He's like, thanks for giving me some notoriety and everything. I came on your platform. We had a debate, blah, 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 blah. So it's a win-win for them, right? And so, though they both lose. So they have their little debate, and then Brown is going to say, well, I'm gonna help keep everybody deceived, right? Because well, there were there were some blacks, some they understand they're people of color, and there's lighter skinned. Like, this is just. But what about the fact that it says they that are in the flesh cannot please God, and the children of the flesh are not the children of God? That doesn't make a difference. So they're skipping over that. That little fact doesn't seem to be very important, right? So he's saying this, and you're asking yourself, okay, well, how do you know who a Jew is then? Right? How do you know who a Jew is? If you're gonna make it about the flesh, which it's not, because they in the flesh can't please God. If they can be black, if they can be brown, and they can be white, how in the hell do you know who a Jew is? Because the people who they're gathering in the Middle East, again, these are people who many of them don't even claim to believe even a fake religion, which is Judaism, and the fake Americanized Christianity, the Christianity of this world. These guys don't even pretend. They're just like, well, I'm just here. And in essence, they're just there they're there for the land and the notoriety. They're there for the stuff. Ooh, I can get a free house.
Okay? But yes, there's black presence in the Bible, for sure. Yes, the ancient Israelites were people of color. All clear on that. Many times, though.
Notice he said the ancient Israelites were people of color. Okay, all right.
Israelites and those in that camp will raise the charge of synagogue of Satan, that Jews like me, Ashkenazi Jews, and others who are not black are fake Jews and synagogue of Satan. Of course, it's a complete misuse of Revelation 2:9, Revelation 3:9.
So he's saying, no, we're not the synagogue of Satan. Even though we're trying to glory in the flesh, even though it tells you clearly they in the flesh can't please God, he's saying, oh no, we're not the synagogue of Satan. God says, well, they in the flesh can't please God. How are you not the synagogue of Satan? Makes no sense, right? Because what he's trying to do is he's trying to make himself an exclusive group in the flesh. If you don't think you're special in the flesh, then what's the argument about? Why are you debating something if it's not of any significance? You're only arguing this because you're going to gain something from arguing your point. Why would you argue this so much? What is the benefit to him to argue and to say, no, we are the quote unquote people? What's the benefit? And I'm going to show you right quick. I'm going to show you what the benefit is, guys. Here's you say, why is he arguing? And again, I think Sicarii is a fool, because Sicarii and the so-called Black Hebrew Israelites, they don't have a lot. You don't know how many Zionists and lobby systems, quote unquote, Zionism has, guys. They have so many lobby systems. Your so-called president Barack Obama gave $38 billion over 10 years, and there's no lobby system. There's no lobby system. Nobody's promoting on TV, YouTube, Hollywood, so-called Hebrew. You saw what happened when I think it was Kyrie Irving said something and tried to espouse what Sicarii, quote unquote, believed or even tried to validate it. What happened? There was a swift clamping down, right? You saw what happened when Whoopi, quote unquote, Goldberg tried to speak up on The View. When she's tried to speak up, they clamped down fast. You saw what happened when Kanye West and Nick Cannon tried to open their mouth and say certain things. They were quick to be like, oh no. Do you think that the so-called Black Hebrew Israelites have any kind of power like that? So, these people who are trying to play you for a fool and make it seem like, well, we're going to have a debate and that actually means something. That doesn't mean anything. You having a debate with these guys, what does it mean? They still have a lobby system. They still can do what they call the birthright of return. Look, right of return. They're doing the right of return. They have a birthright of return to go to some place called Israel. Your taxpayer dollars have been given to pay for this group of people for a war that didn't even happen in America, where actually supposedly America was involved and actually helped. If anything, they would be grateful and say, let us pay you back. Nope, you're getting indebted and paying taxes for them to help fight their war. I want you to think about that fundamentally. Meanwhile, you as a so-called black person, black, African American, native, where's your so-called reparations? No. So don't let this pseudo Jew, pseudo liberal try to pretend that there's some kind of equilibrium going on with regards to this discussion. There's not. But this is why people are so stupid. This is why people get duped. This is exactly the mind of a colonizer. Make you think, oh, you're good, we're friends, all this kind of stuff. But he's just trying to get the advantage of you. Why is this guy, Dr. So-called Brown, having a debate at all? Because he knows there's a benefit for him, for you believing. And if you don't question what the benefit is, check the money that gets sent over to the lying sign to wonder in Israel and ask yourself what that's about. Because here's what it goes. It says, now, therefore, notice this if. This if is the biggest, for some reason, this is what makes him a hypocrite. It tells you by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified in the sight. So the only thing, if you can't be justified by the law, and the law is a schoolmaster so that you can be saved by grace through faith via the gospel, then you would understand, well, okay, the way that I can, quote unquote, fulfill the law is by believing the gospel. And then it says, I'm dead, circumcised to the world. I'm no longer in the flesh, and I'm not in the flesh, but in the spirit. My life is found in God, right? Because the law is not for a righteous man. The law is just to show you your transgressions. Well, God doesn't sin. God doesn't need the law to show him transgressions because God cannot sin. God can't sin. And if your life is hid in God, guess what? You can't sin because your life is hid in God. That's why you need to be found in him, having not your own righteousness. But pertaining to the children of the flesh, it says there's none righteous, no, not one. But we know God is righteous. God is just. God can't sin. So if I'm found in him, having not my own righteousness, then I'm good. You're going to accuse God of sin? Well, my life is hid in God. You can't accuse God of sin, right? So now, therefore, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, this is talking about the covenant. It's talking about you need to believe the gospel. Then ye shall be a peculiar treasure. Listen, if you obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, you shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, above all people, for all the earth is mine. So this is, you're like, well, why would they lie? Because what they're trying to tell you is, this isn't about heaven. This isn't about heaven. This is about, see, you got to understand, they are fighting for this world. They don't care about heaven. They care about this world. They don't care about heaven. They don't care about eternal life. It's all the focus is on this world, money, filthy lucre's sake, lording over you in the flesh. That's all it's about for them. They could care less. See, if you obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, you should be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. Now, when he says obey my voice, for they have not all obeyed the gospel. For Isaiah said, Lord, who hath believed our report? This was just amazing. Isaiah is saying that, you got to believe the gospel. Now, you have these people claiming to be Jews who have not even believed the gospel. How can salvation be of those who aren't saved? Don't you have to be saved and then have God, the Savior, in you to do unto will of his good pleasure? And then you can go out and say, it's Christ in me, the hope of glory, the Savior? Yes, that's how it works. But these guys are saying, oh, no, that's okay. And it's talking about the gospel. If you obey my voice. Well, anyone can believe. This is why it says, from faith to faith, the just shall live by faith. And then it also says, listen, know ye therefore that they which are of faith, the same are the children of Abraham. And then it tells you the children of the flesh are not the children of God. See, Abraham believed the gospel preached before in Abraham. And when Abraham believed the gospel, it says the gospel is preached to them that are dead, that they may be judged according to men in the flesh, but live according to God in the spirit, right? So we know, based on what the scriptures say, the gospel is preached to them that are dead, that they may be judged according to men in the flesh, right? Because they in the flesh can't please God. And God's saying, oh, are you going to try to seek to be justified by the law? That's not going to work. But if you believe the gospel, then you're not in the flesh. You live according to God in the what? You're in the spirit. You're a new creature. And if you're in the spirit, you're found in God, having not your own righteousness, and you're not judged. You're not condemned because God's not condemned, right? It's beautiful, guys. It's absolutely beautiful. So let's go back. Let's see what she's talking about.
But I brought it up in the context of Mr. Fortson. He said, well, why he's not making that accusation? I just want to point this out. Here's his book, Undeniable. And I went through some of the contents of this on the air, verses that are misused and things like that. But here's his book, Undeniable. And here on page 4, all right, page 4 on the bottom, highlighted in bold is Revelation 3:9. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I'll make them come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I've loved thee. So there's a reason why I call that out, because using that verse, misusing it, especially in a context like this, leads to all types of anti-Semitic and hateful comments, which come my way.
How is it anti-Semitic when he's saying you're not a Jew? That's like me saying, you know, you're anti-black, and the person saying, but you're not black. But you're anti-black. No, you're actually not black. I don't believe you're black. Well, since he said the so-called Jews can be dark brown, regular brown, and he said they can and look white, what argument are you going to use? Well, seriously, what's your argument? You're anti, no, I don't think you're a Jew. It's like a person says, you know, I'm a doctor, and you're like, I don't really believe you're a doctor. How do I know you're a doctor? Just because you say you're a doctor? And they're like, that's racist. I'm like, no, that's me doubting you. That's me just doubting who you say you are. That's all. Why would you doubt that I'm a Jew? Well, it's this little thing called the scriptures. It's just this little thing called they that in the flesh can't please God. And it says a Jew is to be a light to all nations. And when it says to be a light to all nations, I know you can't be a light to all nations if you haven't believed the gospel. Because if you believe the gospel, remember, you're not in the flesh, but in the spirit. In whom the God of this world had blinded. So salvation is of those who are blind? No. The God of this world had blinded the mind of them which believe not. Talking about the gospel? Listen, guys. How can you be fooled by this? Seriously, that's a serious question. They in the flesh can't please God. All of a sudden it comes short of the glory of God. They in the flesh can't please God. God doesn't dwell in temples made with hands, neither does he worship with men's hands. And he says, God's called the Father of spirits, and flesh and blood cannot inherit nor enter the kingdom of God. And he's like they to be of faith. These are the children of Abraham. You're like, well, okay. Faith in what? No, the promise of eternal life, which God promised before the world began. Don't you think that's pretty significant? Eternal life? Yes. In whom the God of this world had blinded the mind of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel, right? All have sinned and come short of the glory. Well, how do you get the glory? Got to believe the glorious gospel, and then you're found in him. Who is the image of God should shine under them. He's saying, look, you don't believe the gospel, you're blind. This is not, so again, not difficult. Not difficult, guys.
Regular basis. I'm not personally hurt or offended by it. My identity is in Jesus Yeshua. My own Jewishness it's just like the nose on my face. I grew up Jewish. My parents.
See, he's saying I grew up Jewish. My parents. Your parents having sex doesn't make you Jewish. Also, you must be born again is talking about being born again by the incorruptible seed. Your first birth, Dr. Brown, is of corrupt seed. Right? That's why you perish. And the children of the flesh, born of flesh and blood, are not the children of God. This is not difficult. So you talking about, well, I grew up Jewish parents, Jewish this, Jewish that. Again, he went to Bible school so that they can make a fool out of him. And this is what he is. He's like a highfalutin fool. Listen to what he's gonna say.
I'm Jewish, etc. There's no mystery to that's my heritage, but my identity is found in being in Jesus, Yeshua. That's what matters. Okay, so
So it's saying being in Christ is what matters. Well, it says if any man be in Christ, he's a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things have become new. So how can you then hang on to quote unquote that so-called identity which is in the flesh? Because if your identity in the flesh was pleasing to God according to your belief system, then there would be no need for you to believe so that you can be a new creature, because the old creature according to you could be just fine. So how are you then claiming, well, I'm going to talk about my lineage based on flesh and blood, which is means that's your first birth, but then I'm also going to say my identity in Christ, which means you're a new creature. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things become new. You're born again of incorruptible seed. It can't be both. You can't be like, well, okay, I'm both. No, this is what it's saying. You're not in the flesh, but in the spirit means you're not in the flesh, but in the spirit. It means you're not in the flesh, but in the spirit. You're in God.
let's go through this. I think you're going to find this really interesting and helpful. When Mr. Fortson reached out to me, I wrote back to him. And by the way, he's posted some of my emails. So go ahead, post the full interaction, unedited from beginning to end, full text of all of our emails. Feel free, Mr. Fortson, to go ahead and do that. I wrote back to him August 28th. Hello, Dante. Thanks for reaching out and giving me your private contact information. Here's my private email as well. I would love to hear more about your personal story, not to debate, but to understand your journey. Perhaps chatting by phone as our schedules permit. And as I said, I'm open to have you on my show to present your viewpoint. Also, do you have any statement of faith, re-salvation, and Jesus, Yeshua, etc.? Blessings to you, Dr. Brown. So that's the tone with which I started off. That's the initial email. The first words of his email response to me, August 28th, this is 5:26 in the afternoon. The first words of his response to me, good to hear from you, but I honestly don't think you're looking for answers, truth, or dialogue. Of course, he didn't print the rest of his emails, and they're lengthy back and forth to each other. In fact, I wrote lengthy responses saying, please take this as a sign of respect and honor, all right? But those are the opening words. Good to hear from you, but I honestly don't think you're looking for answers, truth, or dialogue. So that's how things started out. I sincerely reached out. I sincerely opened the door. And that was the initial response, the opening words of that next email. Well, we went back and forth. And I subsequently called him out for bearing false witnesses. He put up a video called...
When it says bearing false witness, you're bearing false witness because it says, let me explain to you why he's bearing false witness. He's trying to glory in the flesh, right? Here's the problem with that, guys. Romans 8:8. We go back. How do you know he's bearing false witness? Because he's claiming to be the children of God in the flesh. And so he can't be bearing the true witness because he's lying and saying the children of the flesh are the children of God, which is the opposite of what the scriptures say. So he's actually acting as if he witnessed the truth, but he has not witnessed the truth because he's trying to worship in the flesh and glory in the flesh. You're not in the flesh, but in the spirit, if so be the spirit of God dwelling in you. If any man have not the spirit of Christ, he's not his. So it's talking about the spirit of Christ, which is obviously the spirit of truth, right? So if you don't have the spirit of truth, you're still in the flesh. And if you're still in the flesh, you can't please God. And if you can't please God, it means you haven't believed the gospel. And if you haven't believed the gospel, that means you're not born again. If you're not born again, that means you'll perish. And if you perish, he takes no pleasure in the death of the wicked, and you're none of his. I mean, just absolutely gorgeous.
Ashkenazi Jews stole their identity according to Dr. Michael Brown. That's false. That is clickbait, and it's false. So I called...
It actually isn't false. You're fake. Oscar Nazis are fake.
Out on that. This is how he wrote back to me. This is September 12th. And this is why I'm not going to be responding in an ongoing way. He wrote this: you have been deceptive since the beginning. You pretend to have sources that you don't have. Sad people have to keep asking. If you and your racist friends like vocab, meaning vocab alone, actually had good intentions, you'd make your...
So the guy is saying that Dr. Brown is racist, right? You and your racist friends like vocab, right? Because vocab set up the... he wanted to have the debate. And you know, vocab, Malone, quite a dimwit. This vocab Malone, he is the one who was been going on these other channels, like even these quote-unquote Calvinist channels, and saying, well, these so-called black Hebrew Israelites, they're wrong. Because he's saying that's called replacement theology. So he doesn't believe that they're so-called, he doesn't really believe Sicarii or so-called Hebrew Israelites. Anyway, he doesn't believe it. But he's trying to choose between one group of liars and the other. So he's basically saying, I agree with so-called Dr. Brown, the witch doctor. So, yeah, there you have it.
Sources available without asking. You and your fake Christian friends would tell us plainly where you get the made-up number of a few 100,000 Israelites. You and your fake Christian friends would be 100% honest that the transatlantic slave trade is directly tied to the Inquisition, but none of you are honest. All of you are liars, and when you showed your true colors, it became obvious. Claiming you're disappointed by hundreds of sources. Wow.
Okay. So one of the things he said, listen, you and your fake Christian friends would be 100% honest that the transatlantic slave trade is directly tied to the Inquisition, right? But none of you are honest. He's basically saying, look, the transatlantic slave trade and all that stuff, that's tied to you fake people who claim to be something you're not. He's basically saying you guys have a hand in slavery. That's what he's accusing him of. He's saying, and you're racist. That's what he's saying. He's saying you're racist and you had a hand in slavery. You're part of the slavery system. That's why you're claiming to be a special group of people, and you're not converting. Where's the whole conversion? I thought you were supposed to convert all nations. Be a light, gospel.
One, and expecting me to accept it is complete bias BS, and you know it. When you step your game up academically, let me know you're so amateur at this, it's embarrassing. So I'm not going to continue to reply to someone who has that attitude and makes these fake Christian, racist, false accusations. I did tell him I'll pray for his repentance.
So I don't know, how is Dr. Brown? Is he speaking for himself or is he speaking for a whole group of people? Which is stupid, right? Because I can speak for all the children of the flesh and say all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, because that's what God said. And no flesh will glory before him, and flesh and blood cannot inherit nor enter the kingdom of God, and that you got to be born again of incorruptible seed. And if you don't have eternal life, you're not a sheep. That's what God says. How is is Brown trying to bear witness and defend the lie of, quote unquote, him being a special chosen person according to the flesh?
For his accepting the truth, regardless of whether ancient Israelites were black or white or green, is not even the issue. It's not the issue in the least to me. The issue is the attitude behind these things. And
so when that's when you see, you got to watch these devils. You know that it doesn't matter if they're black or white or green. The problem is, why did you have a debate again? You guys need to understand. For him, let's play this lie again. It's an amazing lie.
False accusations. I did tell him I'll pray for his repentance and for his accepting the truth. Regardless of whether ancient Israelites were black or white or green, is not even the issue. It's not the issue in the least to me. The issue is the attitude behind these things. And of course, we've provided sources, we've listed sources, and then I've written books where I interact with some of these things with further sources. In any case, that's the attitude that I've confronted. And please post with my full permission, unedited, the full email interaction, of course, with our email addresses hidden as appropriate. So that's what we're dealing with. And that's why you're not going to hear an ongoing response to every video. Now here's the other side of it. If we went back and forth, he had put out a 12-minute video. I put like a 1-hour detailed response. He then put out like a 3-hour plus response. You'll see a whole bunch of videos since then. What am I going to do now? Put out like a 9-hour response to his, then he'll put out like a 27-hour response to. So it's endless. He'll probably keep doing this, and I seem to be a good way to draw people to his YouTube channel. I'll give you a list of all the videos.
I mean, the irony of this guy trying to claim that somebody's in it for the money. This guy is claiming people are in it for the money. Can you believe that? I mean, that's just rich.
Recently, but let's get into some substance. What I want to do the rest of the time is get into some substance. So one of his videos, he makes this statement. I'm talking about how there was intermarriage in Israelite history, and there's certainly black intermarriage. You can't deny that in Israelite history.
There's black intermarriage. This is why they got to do that middle of the road. Well, they're people of color, but see, what they're really trying to do is just make them white. That's what the Ashkenazis are trying to do. They're trying to make the chosen people white. They're trying to establish really just white supremacy. they'll include some so-called people who are brown under the white supremacy umbrella. But really, what they're trying to do is just have white supremacy. This is why they don't want to convert. All they're doing is, this is the same colonizers, children of the colonizers, who want to rule and reign over people. And they're saying, well, how can we not come off as being supporting white supremacy anymore? Well, we'll hijack, claim that we're Jews when we're not. And then we can say, anytime someone challenges us, we'll say they're anti-Semitic, which makes no sense, because if you're saying that it can be black, and I don't care, black, white, green, how are they then anti-Semitic if they can be black, white, and green? If you agree they can be any color, how are they anti-Semitic? Because if they're claiming to be Jews and they're just saying you're not a Jew, you just say you're upset because they're claiming you're not a Jew. How is that anti-Semitic?
A Cushite woman, etc. So I said, yeah, that exists through history. There's converts into Judaism or into the Israelite faith through history. So listen.
So another thing that doesn't make sense. He's saying there's converts. A convert is a person who's saved. A convert is a person who has eternal life. In fact, he says, yeah, there's converts and stuff throughout history. Well, let me show you something. In the book of Esther, this is talking about in 127 provinces. Let me show you this. I'll show you the provinces later. In every province, in every city, whethersoever the king commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day, and many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. Right? Knowing therefore that our Lord, we persuade men. Persuade them to do what? To believe the gospel. Remember what Isaiah said, who had believed our report, and who had obeyed the gospel, who had believed our report. So this is what Isaiah is talking about. He's like, believe the gospel. And he said, many of the people of the land became Jews. Now, who are these many of people in the land who became Jews? Those provinces are from India to Ethiopia. 127 provinces. Right? 127 provinces. Many of the people of the land became Jews. People of the land became Jews. Now, I'm going to show you how racist these people are. This is why you can't believe these liars. Let me show you how they're like. See how it says many of the people became Jews? Let me show you what they did. In the New Modern Bible Version, NET, they're going to say many of the resident people pretended to be Jews. Because they're so racist, what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, don't believe that those 127 provinces, which is a lot, 127 provinces, many people of the land, India to Ethiopia, became Jews. Right? So that's why they're lying to you. And so for him to pretend, well, what does it mean that other people are converts? That's like saying they had to be born again. I didn't have to be born again. That's what that's saying. It's like saying, listen, except ye be converted and become as a little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of God. So they're basically saying, well, they got to be converted. I mean, think about what he's saying. Conversion means you've been born again by the incorruptible seed, the word of God that liveth in the body forever. And it tells you flesh and blood cannot inherit nor enter the kingdom of God, which is the kingdom of heaven. Same thing. So what Brown is saying is absolutely senseless.
This clip, listen to what he has to say.
I'm just going to be honest here, Dr. Brown. I feel like this is not your best effort. Ruth was a Moabite. Moabites were descended from Lot, and Lot was Abraham's nephew. So that would make the Israelites cousins of the Moabites. They came from the same exact family. If Abraham was a Hebrew, his brother was a Hebrew. And it would mean the Moabites are Hebrews, but they're not Israelites. So they're not a different race of people. So throwing Ruth in there, although I do agree with you, there's a lot of Israelites that think Ruth was an Israelite. I don't believe so. But I agree with you that Ruth was a Moabite. However, Ruth would still be a Hebrew, and she would still very likely look like the Israelites looked at that time. And
I want to point out something else that's dumb. I want to point out something that's really dumb. They're arguing about this Moabite woman, right? What's so stupid about this? I'm going to talk about something so dumb. Listen, if you want to talk about heritage, and they say they would have looked alike, look at this. Was not Esau Jacob's brother? Yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau. These are brothers. Same mother, same father. And it says, I hated Esau and laid his mountains and his heritage waste. That doesn't make any sense because according to these guys, they're of the same heritage. But what makes it make sense, guys, given that you must be born again? Well, it makes sense if Jacob actually believed the gospel and he was born again, right? He says, I hated Esau and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness, right? That's what he's saying. And it says, whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished. Listen, we will return and build the desolate places. This is the fake Israel in the Middle East. This is the fake Israel in the Middle East. This is like, when he says, your house be left unto you desolate, he's saying there's nothing good that dwelleth in you. You don't have the light of life in you. You're an abomination to God. And he's saying, in your flesh dwells no good thing, and you can't please God, and you're going to perish and go back to the dust. And so this is what he's saying. He's saying, what do you mean you're gonna keep? We're gonna keep on building. We're gonna go back and build another temple. We just read where it said in Acts 17, God doesn't dwell in temples made with hands, neither is he worshipped with men's hands. But they're saying, well, we're gonna go back and build the desolate places. We're gonna do the works of our flesh, and we're gonna try to worship you in the flesh, even though you said no flesh or glory for you, and they in the flesh can't please God. The Lord of hosts said, they shall build, I will throw down, and they shall call them, listen, here's what they call them, the border of wickedness, and the people against the Lord had indignation forever. The border of wickedness. Now, listen to this, the border of wickedness. Just to help you understand that this is talking about being born again of incredible seed, that it doesn't, the wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they're born, speaking lie. The wicked are estranged from the womb. And that's why it says the children of the flesh are not the children of God. So when it's talking about the wicked, the border of wickedness, so shall Bethel do unto you because of your great wickedness. In a morning shall the king of Israel utterly be cut off. He says they're estranged from the womb, and he's saying they're wicked. So there's a fake Israel, guys. That's why when we read in Romans 9, it says they're not all Israel which are of Israel. And then it says the children of the flesh aren't children of God because you got to be born again of the incredible seed. That's what it's talking about. It's saying, look, there's a fake Israel. There are fake Jews. There's a fake Israel. That's all it's saying.
Israelites looked like ancient Egyptians, which is why they were confused with ancient Egyptians. And as we've heard, pretty much.
So he said Israelites look like ancient Egyptians, which is why they're confused with ancient Egyptians. Now, what does Egypt represent in the scriptures? Egypt represents children of the flesh. So when I come to you, you're going to be like, well, you look like a child of the flesh. And I'm going to say, well, you'll be like, you're coming to me. I'm going to say, don't look at my outer man, because it says, listen, I'm going to tell you, they in the flesh can't please God. And I'm not in the flesh, but in the spirit. But you can be like, all I can see is your outer man. You look like a child of the flesh. And I'm like, well, remember, the wind blows where it listeth, and thou hear the sound thereof, but canst not tell from whence it cometh or whither it goes. So all those who are born of the spirit. You can't tell, and you can't even see my life, because why? My life is hid. I'm dead to this world, dead to the old man, and my life is hid with Christ in God. So you say they look like Egyptians, then I would explain to you that that's an allegory. That's an allegory. Egypt just represents bondage. It represents, quote unquote, being under the law and under death. Meaning, how can you escape? Death, where thy sting, grave, where thy victory. But he's saying, how shall ye escape? He was born of the bondwoman, was born after the flesh. That's what I'm saying. Listen, Egyptian, bondwoman, after the flesh. He of the free woman was by the promise. And it's talking about this Agar's Mount Sinai. It's letting you know, listen, guys, this is an allegory. These things are an allegory. And remember the two covenants, right? The two covenants. There's the law and there's the promise of eternal life, right? You're not going to be justified by the law. By grace through faith, you're saved. Not of works, lest any man should boast. Okay? So that's what it's saying. And it's pertaining to people talking about I'm the most persecuted that ever existed. It's a lie, because it says, he that was born after the flesh persecuted him that was born after the spirit, even so it is now. And it's saying that because it's basically saying it's not a carnal warfare. It's not like we're going in the desert trying to build a temple made with hands, which we know God doesn't dwell in, trying to please God in our flesh, which it says they in the flesh can't please God, because we know all the stuff that men build, it's going to perish, it's going to go back to the dust. If it was eternal, they wouldn't have to take all your money and extort you for filthy lucre's sake to keep building it, but through your taxpayer dollars. If they had eternal life, they wouldn't be running scared and using the Holocaust as an excuse to extort money. So that just tells you they're bearing witness and they're telling you so plainly that what they're doing, that they're not the people of God. Because they're the people of God, they wouldn't be going into the desert. They'd be going back to Jerusalem above, as free as mother was saw, right? So they weren't born from heaven. That's why they're in the desert. And you know who hangs out in the desert, right? Snakes, serpents, father the devil. Okay, so as it says, he was born after the flesh, persecute him that was born after the spirit, even so it is now. Okay, let's keep on going. Let's go back.
Everybody say, and the historical records show, the ancient Egyptians were black. Dr. Kennedy said it. You heard two Egyptian men say it. You brought in Herodotus, and Herodotus said it. So everybody is saying the ancient Egyptians are black.
All right, we'll come back to that. Of course, everybody's not saying the ancient Egyptians are black, and there's a massive debate among top Egyptologists over it. And I'll quote one of them.
Well, you know, the top Egyptologists, a lot of them are racist, and that's why. Why do you think that Rome? You know, because they talk about how Rome. Remember how they said in 70 A.D. The Romans, quote unquote, sacked Jerusalem, and then they carried away all the stuff from the so-called temple, right? And they destroyed the temple. That's why they faked that prophecy, guys. See, these guys, because they love the world so much, apparently that's why Jesus was murdered, right? Because they're like, you know, they'll take away our place in our nation. So they're like, let's murder Jesus because he's getting in the way, right? So they murdered the man Jesus, right? Because they love the world. And Jesus said, you're of your father, the devil. The works your father do is a murder from the beginning and abode not in the truth. He said, you love the world and the things in the world. He said, love not the world. These guys love the world. And right on cue, they're trying to extort people for money. They're trying to lord over other men, right? And they're trying to put more laws. Talking about so you can do a Noahide law, right? He says they don't keep the law themselves, but they're hypocrites. They're trying to put you under the law. And they don't even preach the gospel to anyone. This guy Brown doesn't even believe the true gospel. He's trying to do both. He's trying to be a child of the flesh and a child of God at the same time. It's stupid. Talking about my mom and my dad, my heritage and my lineage. It's just utter stupidity. It's like, dude, to be born again isn't taught. You don't refer to the flesh, the old man of the flesh. That just lets you know he doesn't know what it means to be born again. So when it comes to Egypt, of course, this guy to save his lie. Because remember, Moses could pass for the son of an Egyptian woman, right? Moses could pass for the son of Egyptian, and Joseph's brothers didn't know him. So because of that, you know what's up. You know that they have to then say, well, okay, well, remember, Dr. Brown tried to play this little line saying, well, black, white, green, I don't care, and there were, ancient Jews were, quote, people of color, and there was some black intermarriage and all this kind of stuff. When he says that, he's just saying not the originals. So really, he's just saying he's trying to protect the lie of the Ashkenazi white supremacy. That's what he's really trying to protect, right? And to prove it, look at who's supporting Israel. It's all the colonizing nations. It's secretly the colonizing nations are all behind it. So that whole Holocaust thing was a big ruse, right? It was a lie. When I say it's a lie, I'm not saying that they didn't murder people. Yeah, they murdered people. The Holocaust very well could have taken place. I wouldn't doubt it. Heck, I say go more than 6 million because there's many more people that fought in the war. They just don't care about all the other people who died because other people were tools, and they just want to make a memorial to worship the fact that, well, what really got us to do this scam was by sacrificing 6 million, or at least reporting 6 million, because who believes that actually anyone got to the number 6 million and stopped? That makes no sense. 5,999,999. Can I get one more just to have a nice round number to report? No, doesn't make sense. Stupid. Yet they're trying to say if you question the number. if I question that perfectly round number, okay, all right, okay. Now, how do you know that Brown's full of it? Well, because again, Sicarii is an idiot, because Sicarii is an idiot, and this guy who's debating so-called Dr. Brown, the white guy, they're all idiots because they're not. Again, the taxpayer dollars and the funding is clearly on the side of who? The Ashkenazis. So, and when you look at where the money's going, it's going from your pocket over to the Middle East and into your politicians' pockets who are being bribed, right? That's what's going, the lobby system. So they're getting their agenda achieved, right? The agenda is not, since you know that they're fake, what did Jesus warn you about? They're fake. They're not trying to get you saved. They're not trying to convert you. So if they're fake, what could be their goal? Is their goal anything good? Why would anyone lie to you? It's because their goal and what ultimately what their agenda is not good. That's why they lie. Right? If their agenda was good, they'd be like, yeah, I'm an open book. Okay? So how do we know they're lying? One, because Dr. so-called Brown, he needs to say Egyptians aren't black. He needs to say that because he's white. And really, it's about, quote unquote, what? The whites. Notice, so-called Jews could pass for Egyptian. Therefore, you can't have Egyptians be black. You need Egyptians to be what? White. So Ethiopians can be black, right? But Egyptians can't be black. Egyptians have to be white, right? Right? This is what they're doing. But then notice, so if Egyptians are white and Moses and Joseph could pass for Egyptians, then that means Germans could pass for Egyptians, Irish can pass for Egyptians, English and Italians can pass for Egyptians. This is why they try to do the compromise, right? But it gets ridiculous at this point. But you're like, why? What? So they did the whole Israel thing, the fake Israel. And then they said, okay, now we're going to go and conquer Egypt, right? So they're the last ones to come in Egypt. And they say, we want Egypt to be white. It can't be black. They're doing that for the lie of Zionism, guys. Now, you say, well, where is that at, bro? Let's see. Let me show you where that's at. Sorry, here we go.
Are inferior than white intellectually. They are subhuman and they're...
sorry.
told by him that
I'll show you guys. Sorry, my bad.
my mother is lighter than I am. I'm a black.
In North Africa.
My father is much darker than I am. My mother is lighter than I am. In Egypt, people are identified by the religion first, not the race. So in Egypt, if you are Christian, you are a minority person. But if you're black, you're not a minority person. You are a part of the mainstream society. And I came from this background. And in Egypt, you identify as Arab and as Muslim. And in this country, when I first came, I identified myself as Arab American and Muslim first. And gradually, I became to identify myself as black. I came to the U.S. in 1978, and I became U.S. citizen in 1985. When I became a U.S. resident, I was told by the Immigration and Naturalization that I am white. And I told them that I'm black, and they said, no, in this country, you are white. All Arabs in this country, all Arab immigrants are white.
So that's why they make the Arabs white. See, white supremacy even says, nope, you're not black, you're white. Egyptians can't be black. Right? So they must make the Middle East essentially as white. See, because you're saying, well, I can see that dude, according to what they say, and white. This is why they try to play you like you're an idiot. They try to say, well, do you not know you can't see? It's like, no, I can see. I can see that you look white. I can see that you claiming to be a Jew, you look white. According to your own racial classifications, you're white. And then they said, well, this dude who you can see, well, he's Egyptian. Well, he's not black. Any other time he'd be black. But now he's not black.
I didn't pay much attention in the beginning to this because in the Arab world, we identify with our ethnicity first as Arabs and then with the race second as black or white or whatever. But in this country, you identify with your racial group first and then with your ethnicity second. Gradually, I became black first and Arab second. And I rejected my white classification publicly for the first time in 1987, in February, as a panelist in a function sponsored by the Association of the Study of Black Life and History in Detroit. I said that I belong to two minority groups. I am Arab American and Black American, and I'm racially black and ethnically Egyptian. I was harassed by my employer right after that. I work for a white school district. The superintendent is white. All the associate superintendents are white, even though that we provide services to 30% black population. But the organization is white and the approach is very white. The attitude towards me changed completely after I went out publicly and rejected my white classification. A white coworker came to me and told me right after the function that he met with the superintendent, and if I don't keep my mouth shut, my educational career is over. He said, you have nothing to do with these people. You have a history and a culture. These people came from the jungle. You have nothing to do with them. These people lie and steal. When I see one of them in my neighborhood, I call the police. And I was told by the director of general education, who is retired now, in 88, I was told by him that I get people angry when I say that I'm black Egyptian. If I just say that I'm Egyptian, I would get along. I have to add that
He says he's black Egyptian, makes people angry. Why? Notice how vested. Notice who's really, really vested. All that Dr. So-called Brown said. Notice he said it doesn't matter, but then he says, but no, Egyptians. I thought it didn't matter. Why, if it doesn't matter, why are they fighting so hard to make Egyptians, quote unquote, white? It don't matter, right? They don't have them mixed. He even said, he said, I know there were people of color. That's what Dr. So-called Brown said. But he went, so okay, well, this guy's a person of color. Don't blacks fit under the group of people of color? And you think that Egyptians would fit under people of color? No, Lord. The Egyptians is listed as what? White. So this is how you know they're full of it, guys. You know they're full of it. Anybody with common sense knows they're full of it. But
denied promotion twice because I chose black classification. This is part of my 2 lawsuits against my employer which are currently pending, 2 lawsuits.
Now, just for the education.
Okay, so you see that. Two law. Somebody obviously can. Now, who's got that kind of. Do you think that's happening for the Hebrew Israelites? You think the Hebrew Israelites got the kind of power to do something like that? You think the Hebrew Israelites can go into, like, let's see, let's take, do you think they can go into Rome and say, no, if you're from Rome, you're going to be classified as black on the U.S. Census, right? You know what I mean? And then get people fired. Who's got that kind of power? And again, where's the money going? Where's the money going? Think about Zionism and the money and the wars being fought. These Negroes can't give, not only can they not get the 40 acres and the mule, they can't even get the mule. They can't even get the mule. So this is what I'm talking about. So you got to watch out for so-called Dr. Brown, because Dr. Brown's going to try to come off as super liberal, but he's not. Dr. Brown's not liberal, but he's trying to come off as liberal.
Prominent African-American scholars on blacks in antiquity who says the ancient Egyptians were not black. We'll get back to that. But the Moabites were not Hebrews. I just quote that to give you an example that Mr. Fortson is not a biblical scholar or a historian. All right, you just have to remember that. He can show you 1,000 sources, but 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 equals 0. The sources have to be rightly understood. Ruth was not a Hebrew. The Moabites were not Hebrews. In fact, according to Deuteronomy 23, look at this. Deuteronomy 23 says no Moabite up to the 10th generation, an Ammonite or a Moabite. Right? So they've got relations through Lot, but they were now foreigners, idol worshippers. They were not part of the chosen people, chosen race.
So, wait, I'm sorry.
All right? Foreigners, idol worshippers. They were not part of the chosen people, chosen race. All right? Foreigners, idol worshippers. They were not part of the chosen people, chosen race. Now, foreigners, idol worshippers. They were not part of the chosen people, chosen race.
So there's a chosen race. And you just saw how they took Egyptians and they said Arabs are actually considered white. So now Arabs are part of white supremacy. Egyptians are classified. They're part of white supremacy. You see how it works? He said chosen race. That's what this man just said, chosen race. That's because he's trying to glorify. He says his identity was in Christ. Can you see who's in Christ? No, you can't. So his identity is not in Christ. And he's trying to say chosen race. This is why they tried to deify the flesh of Mary. So they can say, well, we call the flesh of Mary God. That's why they're fighting over the so-called, which is dumb because everybody is of the same flesh. This is why I point to you guys, Jacob and Esau. I'm like, these guys are twin brothers. Clearly, Jacob believed the gospel. He was born again of incredible seed. But he just said that. He said chosen race. What did he say? He said something else.
Ammonite or a Moabite. Right? So they've got relations through Lot, but they were now foreigners, idol worshippers. They were not part of the chosen people, chosen race.
So it says they're idol worshippers. They're not part of the chosen people, part of the chosen race. They were idol worshippers, not part of the chosen people, the chosen race. They were idol worshippers, not part of the chosen people, the chosen race. They were idol worshippers, not part of the chosen people, the chosen race. Well, idol worshippers, not part of the chosen people, the chosen race. The problem with what he's saying, they were idol worshippers, not part of the chosen people, the chosen race. It says God the Spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. No, they're not part of their idol worshippers. Not as he worshiped with men's hands. So what he's saying doesn't make sense. Chosen race, isn't race associated with flesh? Okay. So we've established that. Now, a couple of things I want to establish. He also said something about Egyptians. Now, they're really fighting to make Egyptians white, as you just saw in the 2020 census. We're going to look at this thing. This is a book. This book is called, let's see if we can find, let's see if I can. Well, I'll show you that at the beginning. But this book is, and I'll have to show you later. I'll show you the beginning. Anyway, this book is called What page is this? 181. Okay, page 181. We'll remember 181. I'm gonna show you what this book is called. The Bible Defense of Slavery. Okay, let's talk about the Negro race. It wasn't written by a black person. This is the 5th edition. It's written in 1852. Quite significant, 1852, because in 1852 you got to understand something's going on in the world. Let's see, what is this? Let me show you something. Show you guys something. 1852. Let me show you. Let's see, Berlin. I'll show you guys something. Look at the Berlin Conference, guys. The Berlin Conference is 1884 to 1885. So I want you to understand that what I'm showing you, this book that this guy has written, The Bible Defense of Slavery, is written in 1882. Does that make sense to you? 1852. I'm sorry, 1852. My bad. 1852. Okay, 1852. It's written in 1852. Now, that's written in 1852. 1852. And the Berlin Conference, 1852. Let's make it is 1884. Right? 1884. Now, what was the Berlin Conference? The Berlin Conference was new imperialism period. Colonization. Right? Is the historical context. New imperialism characterized a period of colonial expansion by European powers, the United States and Japan, during the late 1900s and early 20th centuries. Now I want you to notice who's involved in this. All the World War II. You got Berlin. You got this guy who's Rhodes. He's Cecil Rhodes. He's British, right? Dear Lord Rothschild, British, right? And then you got Japan, World War II, United States, right? And European powers. And they're all in Africa, carving up Africa. Right? That's what it is. This is 1884. Now, let's go back to this. That says on 181, right? So we go back, and we're going to look at this. Now, this is going to be talking about what? Egypt. And notice it's talked about, listen, I want you to see something here. Listen. The prophet Ezekiel's account of the Negroes of Egypt and Canaan. He says the Negroes of Egypt and Canaan corroborates all that I have said above. Whereas he speaks of them as being great of flesh, whose mischievous manners had corrupted the women of the Jews to such a degree that many of them had made themselves images of men in imitation of the Egyptian images and committed fornication with them literally. Right? And he's talking about, listen, Prophet Ezekiel in reference to the Egyptian Negroes. Egyptian Negroes. That's funny. Do you see Egypt under classification of the U.S. Census? Do you see it being classified as Egyptians as white and black? Because they have Ethiopian here under black, but they don't have Egyptian under black. So that's them caught lying. That's Dr. So-called Brown getting caught lying again. Right? He got caught lying again. Another thing. He's talking about whether there was some black blood. I'm going to show you something else. This is another person talking about Egypt.
A few of them here on this channel, and honestly, it's tiring because it's almost like talking that we have talked about. There are actual historical facts, but for some unknown reason, some people don't want to associate ancient Egypt with black. Let me show you this clip of an Egyptian brother I found on TikTok. He goes by the name of...
The fact that people are saying for some unknown reason. No, there's no unknown reason, guys. We know what the reason is.
Alchemy. And let me tell you, he gathered the Egyptians that are pushing back. Watch this clip. We'll come back and discuss.
Dark-skinned people here in Egypt are of completely different features and culture than...
Assalamu alaikum. You mean the alkaline Hamitic features like myself? my skin color, my nose, my small lips, etc. Sure, maybe the New Kingdom and the Ptolemaic period pharaohs would look like me, such as Ramses III. But I'm mixed. It doesn't say anything about my forefathers. My forefathers are dark-skinned Fulani. And so was the forefathers of Ramses III and these New Kingdom pharaohs, who were exposed to a lot of invasions and trades and immigrations from Europe and other parts of the world. So your argument is essentially like saying, I am brown, I have alkaline features, therefore my great-grandfather was also brown with alkaline Hamitic features. No, he wasn't. It's because my mother is white. So essentially you deny the Old Kingdom and Middle Kingdom pharaohs, which had typical African features, and that is the part of what you say which may be interpreted as a little bit racist. Then you go about comparing modern Egyptian identity and modern Nubian identity with ancient Kemet. That's completely invalid because we don't care about modern Egypt in terms of identities. We care about the ancient Kemites 3,000 years ago. You know, it's 3,000 years. Things have happened that time, right? I mean, you wear a hijab, you're maybe a Muslim, huh? Where the ancient Kemites, Muslim and wearing a hijab. Just trying to prove a point. That came with the Umayyad invasion when Sayyidina Usman got assassinated and the Umayyad cousins took power and invaded North Africa. People migrate tremendously, huh? Look at Dubai today. Most people in Dubai are immigrants. Look at New York, filled with immigrants. Amsterdam, filled with immigrants. The entire North Africa is filled with immigrants. I mean, the true people there are the natives. What do you think has happened to Egypt the last 3,000 years with invasions from Assyrians, Persians, Phoenicians, Romans, Greeks, you name it? So this argument that that land and nation that you today call Egypt has always been like that is completely false. Some people cite the 2017 DNA study, which actually doesn't say what people say it does, because I read the study in the Nature journal. Yeah, that's one study looking at 2 or 3 mummies. What about the 160 mummies that they didn't publish, right? What about the 1990 study that nobody talks about that showed sub-Saharan in the mummies? What about Sheikh Anta Diop's tests and so on? So you cannot just take one study and point to something. Yeah, sure, there may be people in Egypt today and Nubia today who are direct, distant descendants of some pharaoh. I mean, there would have been many people in ancient Egypt, but since people have migrated there for the last 3,000 years, you can have people in West Africa also are descendants of them. You can have people in Iran who may trace their lineage back to ancient Kemet. I mean, people move. So this kind of argument, let's assume that people don't migrate. People are static only in that geographic region. They don't move. There are no wars. There are no changing of people. Is completely historyless. It's a naive argument that can be disproven as simply as just looking at your random city in Europe today. And the idea that just because I have alkaline Hamitic features, my fathers also had Hamitic features. That can change in 1 or 2 generations. Or the argument that the Egyptians today have some kind of proprietary right to history. So I don't know what to say. It's ego, all I can say.
On that clip, he was responding to an Egyptian that is just angry that black people believe that there are black pharaohs and black people that used to rule ancient Egypt, and she...
So notice, this is the woman who's angry. This is the woman who's saying it, right? And of course, you go to the US 2020 census, and what they're going to do is they're basically including quote-unquote Arabs, or what you call Middle Eastern. See the Lebanese, they're really including those people as white, just like the guy said they're including Egyptians as white. So they're trying to quote-unquote whitewash, but then you have Dr. Brown pretending that he's this great liberal. And that and then you have Sicarii, who's dumb enough to be like, oh, now they're a good friend. Sicarii's not too bright. Because, you had a discussion with a guy, and think about it. He's still arguing. He's still basically saying you're a fraud. he's still saying you're a fraud, man. So this just goes to prove that. Now, notice they got blacks as Jamaicans and Haitians, Nigerians and Ethiopians. And they said, oh, what happened? So they said, well, there was a little bit of quote unquote mixing, a little bit of black so-called blood. Now, remember, it says in Acts 17:26, God made all men to dwell upon the face of the earth of one blood. All men to dwell upon the face of the earth of one blood. Now, the irony of all this is if you go back in history, their big claim to fame is what? The Holocaust. Now, this book, this is Mein Kampf. right? Let's see if I can show you guys this is Mein Kampf. Let's see here. This is what page is this? 89. Okay, this is page 89. Okay, I'm gonna go to, no, it's page 49. 49, okay. I'm gonna go to, this is Mein Kampf. See it? Mein Kampf, okay? So this is Mein Kampf, right? So now we're gonna go to page 49, back to page 49. And there, okay? So we're gonna go to this page and we're gonna go here. Now we talk about this. I want you to see something. This is what so-called Hitler's writing. Okay, Hitler's writing this. This is page 49 of Mein Kampf, okay? It was not until I was 14 or 15 years old that I frequently ran up against the word Jew. Listen, not till I was 14, 15 years old, until I frequently ran up against the word Jew, partly in connection with political controversies. Why are they so involved with politics? Seriously, what is this involvement with lobbying to the government system and working with politics and getting people's taxpayer dollars to do stuff because you're claiming you're hated? Like, how does that work? By the way, the Negroes can't have that. The only time Negroes can have money if it's to try to pacify them into not trying to compete, right? Or to entertain, something like that. That's typically when you can have some money. You know, that's when you can get that so-called good free government money, right? So it says, these references aroused a slight aversion in me, and I could not avoid an uncomfortable feeling which always came over me when I had to listen to religious disputes. But at that time, I had no other feelings about the Jewish question. He said, I had no, the question was, actually, the question is, who's the true Jew? And the scriptures say, I know them to say they're Jews or not, synagogues of Satan. But I want you to look at how the game's going to get played on you and how they're using the Holocaust as a way to, quote unquote, Trojan horse and, quote unquote, protect against criticism, right? Because they can always say, well, it's legitimate because we need, quote unquote, that money and we need to have this war because we're just trying to protect ourselves, right? And this is what they're trying to do. But notice, at the end of the day, what are they doing? They're saying they're white. We just saw it. All that lying rhetoric and stuff that Dr. Brown said, all that, I don't care what black, brown, green, you know the guy's lying, right? Because you look on the census, you look at people arguing, you look at people arguing over Egypt, what color Egypt is. That's because they're trying to say, well, we can't have Egypt be black because if Egypt is black and Moses could pass for the son of an Egyptian woman and Joseph's brothers didn't recognize him, then that would mean the so-called Jews were black. So because they don't want it to be spiritual, because they're trying to practice white supremacy, they need to keep it in the flesh because they can't say it's spiritual, because if they say it's spiritual, that ruins the whole scam. They want your money, right? So, and they want you to fight for their cause, right? The Zionists. And the Zionists are willing to kill anybody, even those who claim to be Jews or not. They'll kill other people who claim to be Jews, no problem. 6 million they'll kill. In fact, they're willing to sacrifice that and much more. Okay, so Hitler's saying, but at that time I had on okay, there were very few Jews in Linz. In the course of centuries, the Jews who lived there had become Europeanized. Listen, had become Europeanized in external appearances, and were so much like other human beings that I even looked upon them as Germans, right? He says they come so much like other human beings, I looked unto them like unto Germans. Now, he says, I look unto them like Germans. Now, we look and say, well, what's a German classified as? Whites. Okay? So Egyptians are whites, Germans are whites. Follow me now. Follow me on this now. Because we're establishing something here. All these people trying to believing this is a liberal movement. You're an idiot. Okay, you're an idiot. These guys will play liberal. They'll play anything. It's called chameleon. It says, listen, I looked upon them as Germans, and he says Europeanized in external appearance. The reason why I did not then perceive the absurdity of such an illusion was that the only external mark which I recognized as distinguishing them from us was the practice of their strange religion. He's saying I thought it was just a religion. The only difference, they white, I'm white, I'm a white supremacist, right? What can be bad about that? They got a strange religion, but whatever. It's all about whiteness, right? This is what they're saying. Listen, as I thought that they were persecuted on account of their faith, right? He says, I thought it was just about their faith, what they believed. My aversion to hearing remarks against them grew almost into a feeling of abhorrence, right? I did not in the least suspect that there could be any such thing as a systematic anti-Semitism, right? This is what Hitler's saying. So you have Hitler saying they were Europeanized in external appearance, right? And he said they had become Europeanized, right? Become. And he said, quote unquote, they looked as Germans, right? And he says, I thought of them as being a religious group. They had a strange religion. That's what Hitler's saying. That's what Hitler's saying. Now, what furthermore is going to prove this thing. Let me show you guys. Look at this. This is called Hitler's Jews. Mark Felton. Okay? Hitler's Jews.
Adolf Hitler had made no secret of his hatred for the Jewish people. It was clearly stated that once Hitler achieved power, he would try to remove Jews from Germany, as indeed he did on becoming Chancellor in 1933, enacting not only violence and intimidation towards Jews, but also legally barring Jews from any meaningful life inside Germany, forcing hundreds of thousands to emigrate in the 1930s. The Jews were legally barred from all the professions, and then in 1935, the Nuremberg laws were promulgated, defining who was Aryan and who was not. These laws actually forbade marriage or sexual relationships between Jews and non-Jews.
Meaning, before then, what were they doing? Before then, they were marrying, doing whatever. Right? So, the question becomes, how do they know who a Jew is? Because if they were marrying these other so-called Europeans, right? He said they had become Europeanized. Listen, let me state this. See, this is why they got to lie and say we're from the Middle East. That's why they got to lie. It's like, oh, they become European. Oh, so what were you before being a European? And wait a minute, they're marrying all these other people. So why is the Ashkenazi such a big part of it then? You guys notice that? Why are the Ashkenazi, quote unquote, the ones who are superior in leadership? Predominantly. Why is that? Why are they trying to classify everyone else as white? Okay, let's keep going.
Defined as the law for the protection of German blood and German honor. These laws were later extended to...
So he said the law for the protection of German blood. Remember, Hitler said, I saw them as German. And so now he's trying to say, well, since they look white, just like me, now we're going to go to the what? The blood level, or what they call the DNA level. Who invented that? That's called eugenics.
Romani and black people, and Romani in particular...
See, Romani and black people.
...held at the same level of contempt as Jews.
So Romani held the same level of contempt. Romani was what? Mixed people.
But what about pre-existing marriages, relationships, and the offspring these unions had already produced before the laws came into effect? What was the children's status? The Nazis produced a complex series of classifications to cover all possible heritage cases, and applied them without regard to family.
Now, when it talks about heritage, remember Jacob and Esau, twin brothers, same mother, same father. Right? Same mother, same father, Jacob and Esau, twins. So is Hitler making any sense? No. Hitler's stupid. Or any of the Zionists making any sense? Nope, the Zionists are stupid. Hebrew Israelites? Nope, stupid. Look at this. Look at this chart.
The children of two Aryan parents were considered Deutschblütige, or German-blooded, and received Reich citizenship. Those who were 1/8 Jewish, that is, had one Jewish great-grandparent, were likewise German-blooded. There then followed the classification Mischling, or mixed race, Mischling also translating as mongrels. Mixed race of the second degree were those persons who were a quarter Jewish, having one Jewish grandparent. They could also have German citizenship. And finally, there was mixed race of the first degree, being 3/8 or half Jewish. These people would also be approved for German citizenship. Jews were defined as being 3/4 or wholly Jewish, and were designated as race enemies and persecuted. Citizens had to obtain a German blood certificate proving their racial and citizenship status. In this way, some families contained German citizens and Jews, and would be split up as the persecutions ramped up into World War II, and full Jews were sent to concentration camps. So it was that many Mischlinge, men who were half or quarter Jewish, ended up in military uniform during World War II, uniform adorned with the swastika. How many? Well, the figures are astounding. It has been calculated by historians that during World War II, about 150,000 soldiers were Mischlinge, and there were some very high-profile examples. Many of these men joined the armed forces because they did not consider themselves to be Jewish. Some cases show that men officially rejected their Jewish mothers, and...
See this? They didn't consider themselves to be Jewish. Many of them rejected their Jewish mothers. It's amazing how you can switch in and out, ain't it? They can just choose not to be. I didn't. I'm not really. I'm not God's chosen people. How awfully convenient. So you hear so-called Dr. Brown say, "I didn't see any black Hebrew Israelites standing on the corner in Germany saying, 'Hey, we're the real Jews.'" Well, what about all these people? They're like, "We're not the real Jews either." It's kind of stupid, right? It's asinine. You think, based on Hitler's classification, what would he do with Jacob and Esau? What would he do with Jacob? Because Jacob and Esau were twin brothers, but one was rejected. Makes no sense.
Emphasized how German and Christian they were. Some came from families that had previously converted to Christianity for a variety of reasons and no longer identified as Jews. One of the most famous examples is that of Werner Goldberg, whose image was used by Nazi propaganda minister Dr. Goebbels as part of a campaign under the title The Ideal German Soldier, not realizing that Goldberg was a Mischling, a man who had half Jewish ancestry. Goldberg's father had long ago converted to Lutheranism so he could marry a Christian. Werner and his brother were baptized as Lutherans and didn't even know of their father's Jewishness until he lost his job because of the Nuremberg laws. In spite of this, Werner was called up for service in the RAD, the Reichsarbeitsdienst, the Reich Labour Service in 1938, and then served in the army during the invasion of France in 1940, where his image came to national prominence as part of a recruiting campaign. But in April 1940, Hitler ordered that all Mischlinge of the first degree, that is, men who were half Jewish, be expelled from the armed forces. This move would place a lot of soldiers in a difficult situation and cause many people to use powerful Nazi friends to have their racial certificates changed to allow them to remain as soldiers and protect themselves and their families from persecution. Werner Goldberg became a teacher for the Reich Committee for Labor Studies.
Amazing how the streams had powerful Nazi friends that changed their name. Ain't that something? They don't, man. And they said many of the historians knew these numbers, but they don't teach this in school, guys. You're gonna read Anne Frank. You ain't gonna read about this though, right? You know they be trying to say, well, some black people own slaves. Oh, A lot of so-called fake Jews was actually fighting for Nazis, right? And now they're claiming they're a chosen race. So what does that make them now?
Managed to keep his father out of the clutches of the Gestapo. He and his father...
Okay, I'm going to let it go at that. So, guys, you want to see that? That's Hitler's Jewish soldiers, Mark Felden Productions, all right? Now that we've done that, let's see what else we want to do here. What else we want to do here? We want to talk about somebody else who's a supposed Jew now. We're gonna go ahead and cover something else. Now, because what they're trying to do, what Dr. Brown is so-called trying to do, he's trying to talk about his persecution and how all these bad things have happened to him and his so-called people, and and it's almost like he's trying to he's basically trying to say, black people, quote unquote, are just, they haven't suffered as much as, because it's like an Olympics, a persecution Olympics, and that's what he's trying to do. Let's see, let's play what he say.
All right. They weren't children of Abraham. They were not Hebrews. They're not called Hebrews. The Hebrews in the Bible are Israelites. Always, only. Always, only. Ruth, Moabites, were not Hebrews. Up to a 10th generation, it says, they can't enter the congregation of the Lord. All right, so what's being told you is very unreliable. There may be a truthful statement here, but it's mixed with all kinds of error. In fact, we come back. I'm just going to give you another example of a glaring error, just to tell you, do the research for yourself, friends. Whoever you are, all right, whether you're one who believes that the people of England are the original Israelites, or the Africans are the original Israelites, or whoever, do solid research, get to the original sources, and then learn from people who have given their lives to studying those texts, who have been face to face with the artifacts, rather than just someone putting out YouTube videos that are easily rebutted.
It's all easily rebutted, even though it says children of the flesh are children of God, born not of flesh nor blood nor the will of man. They in the flesh can't please God. God's indwelt in the temple made with hands, and he's worship with men's hands, and he's called the Father of spirits. And tells you they that be of faith, these are the children of Abraham. They that be of faith. And he's talking about something that study the facts, y'all. Okay, all right. We're going to keep on going, y'all. Since he wants to study, I don't want to let the man down. Let's keep on going. Okay, so we got that out the way. Here goes somebody else who they don't know if he's a Jew or not, but people are starting to question. Let's look at that. Was Christopher Columbus Jewish? This guy's named Henry Abramson, okay? I can just do that.
Because Jews tend to exist on the outsides of mainstream society. In America, where we were accepted...
Let's see something.
Onzine tables that were translated through Hebrew in astronomical Jewish friends. He had support for his...
Sorry, I gotta play.
From Italy, often by Italian Jews. He could issues. So here we go. But first of all, his surname, we say Columbus in English, but it would be Colon. He also signed his name as Colom, Christophe Colom. This was a common Italian Jewish name, excuse me. So used quite often by Italian Jews. He could connect himself to many Italian Jewish families. There's quite a bit of dispute as to what...
See how it's working, guys? The Italian Jews. See how it's working?
He came from Italy. He refers to himself as coming from Genoa. Also, there's documents that indicate he may have come from Majorca, even documents that he may have come from Poland, which is another possibility for this Jewish origins, but none of them are really very reliable. Quite likely he may have come from Sicily. So the last name is something. The first name, definitely not. Christopher, of course, means bearer of Christ, one who carries Christ. So that's not a typical Jewish name, just like Mary. As I mentioned earlier, Columbus loved making references to his Jewish origins, in person and in writing. this is kind of like a dangerous thing to do, because we're living in a period when the conversos are being actively persecuted, and at the same time he was kind of like a transitional liminal figure that was moving in and out of many royal courts from Portugal and Spain, Italy, elsewhere, trying to gain support for his venture, and whatever he thought would make himself look more exotic and more appealing in his request, he would.
See how it goes? It's like, hey, I'm just trying to make myself look more appealing, blah, 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 blah. It's amazing. Let me ask you guys something. Do you think the Negroes could do the stuff that these guys are able to do? Be in the upper echelons of society, and then all of a sudden people just turn around and hate you? But like, how did you get to those upper echelons of society? You're your most hated people. If people can clearly see, like, you think a so-called black person, most black people can so-called just get to these high positions and people not even notice it? No, it's not gonna happen.
Not hesitate to use. But nevertheless, that's part of it. Third, we know he had a lot of Jewish friends. He had a tremendous amount of associations with Jews. He was very close with Abraham Zacuto in Portugal. You recall we spoke about him for an hour a few weeks ago. And he relied very heavily on Zacuto's astronomical research. The astrolabe that Zacuto had refined by making it out of metal was incredibly important to Columbus, as was the Alphonsine tables that were translated through Hebrew into Latin for him. He had many Jews on his ship. We're not precisely sure, because we only have like the ship manifests. They're not complete, and they have surnames. Very many of them we simply don't know what the biographies of them are. We do know that his translator was Jewish. This is, by the way, a typical kind of Jewish profession. Jews in medicine, Jews in law, Jews in finance, and Jews in linguistics are very big. Jews, the exception of American Jewry, it's a very unusual exception, 20th century American Jewry, very monolingual. But for the most part, Jews typically are polyglots, speaking several languages, and very valuable to their host societies as a result. I have a feeling that might...
That's that. We're very valuable to the host society. We're a blessing to all nations. That's what he's trying to say. Not through giving the gospel. That's what he's trying to say. We're a blessing, but not to give the gospel.
Because Jews tend to exist on the outsides of mainstream society. In America, where...
He's trying to make it seem like he's the most persecuted. We're not accepted. We're on the out, but yet we're in, high key positions? Doesn't make sense. Stupid.
We were accepted so well and so deeply, especially in the second half of the 20th century. We lost a lot of our linguistic skill because it was not necessary. But in the first half of the 20th century and earlier, perhaps in the later 21st century, we will develop that again. Hard to say. He was also very close to conversos, that is, Jews who had converted to Christianity during the course of the Inquisition. In particular, de Santagel, who was one of his main economic backers, a very important person in the royal court of Isabel and Ferdinand, who supported him and made crucial recommendations to allow the king and queen.
Persecuted, but in the royal court, and one of his backers. Okay.
To promote his work, and a man named Sanchez as well, another major backer. And in fact, when he actually discovered the New World and he returned back and landed in the coast of Africa, he immediately sent letters describing his discovery to the king and queen. Obviously, he couldn't send letters back from the New World because the postal service was not too great, connecting transcontinental messages. But he did not address those letters to the king and queen. He sent them to his Jewish buddies, or his converso buddies, de Santagel and Sanchez.
Does it some sound a little bit fishy, guys? Sounds a little fishy, doesn't it?
Unusual that they would be the first people he writes to. There are some really tantalizing things, like, for example, he was the ships out. And by the way, you should recall that he spent about a decade petitioning wealthy kingdoms to back his enterprise, pushing for his idea, bouncing from state to state. Spent a lot of time in Portugal, no luck there. Eventually ended up in Spain and got a positive yes from Isabel and Ferdinand. And the ships were completely outfitted in the first week of the month of Av. And he was ready to go on Tisha B'Av of 1492, and he delayed it one day. Even though everything was set to go, but since that is an inauspicious day in the Jewish calendar for travel, one does not embark on major journeys of any type on Tisha B'Av. For reasons that no one can really adduce, he decided to push off this highly anticipated departure for the day after. He wanted to not leave on Tisha B'Av, perhaps. Then we have lots of things that he himself said in his own writings, like his journal of his trip to America, which of course was a very celebrated work, began with the sentence, "On the day that the Jews were expelled from Spain, I set out for the New World." I mean, the very first clause of the very first sentence of his journal references the Jews and their situation in the Iberian Peninsula.
Are you guys starting to see how the scheme works? It's definitely a scheme. They come in, and they come in, and they're like, "Well, we're being persecuted," and some of the people are actually being persecuted because they're pawns and dupes in the scam. Some of the people, they're not dupes; they're actually part of the Zionist scam, and so they come in, and they're like, They know that they're sacrificing these other people who are not the insiders. And then there's people like Christopher Columbus, who's actually just part of white supremacy. And he just comes in, and he's like, "Oh yeah, our excuse, our cover is we're coming because we're being persecuted." But they make it the persecution real because the Zionists are behind it. These people are what they call messianics, Zionists, right? And then in history, they get to say, "Well, no, the reason why we went to this land wasn't to continue to colonize it. It was because we were doing X, Y, and Z." Same thing they're doing today.
A remarkable kind of way to begin this document. It doesn't begin that something like, "I knew I would find land." It begins with the Jews were expelled from Spain. Let's have a look at some of his personal correspondence. Here's one of the few letters that we have in his...
Okay, here's another thing.
Number 9 in our 16 major accomplishments.
Columbus was a messianic, very, very definitely. And he opened up the new world. He opened up a new era, all right? Now, you folks at home, if you're just tuning in, you can go to writingofgod.com, and it survived. Mm-hmm. I've read Sons of Zion versus Sons of Greece. It only went up to Constantine. There was way too much documentation, so I had to break it into 2 volumes. I never thought, but there was such an immense volume of documentation. So Volume 2, which is called Messianic Church Arising, Volume 2 of Sons of Zion versus Sons of Greece, takes the time from Constantine up to the present. And we're talking about this blew me away. I mean, these major accomplishments of the Messianic movement, and they're major.
And that's what we're talking about today.
They're major. They're
book
really
is,
major.
This, what we're talking about,
and
is based on your book.
they've never been given credit for it. They tried to erase the Messianic Church as if it didn't exist. In fact, the official story is that it was, after it was declared heretic in the 4th century, and really, imagine that, folks, the actual church of the Messiah, Jesus Christ, if you prefer, Yeshua HaMashiach, the actual church of the Messiah was declared heretic by the new Greco-Roman
The faith of
church,
the apostles.
by the new churches that were coming.
That's because it's the scam that they're repeating. It's a wash, rinse, and repeat scam, right? Create problems, create pestilence, create all this other stuff. Go into countries, rob, steal, kill, murder, invite suckers and dupes to come and fill the land up under the new system. Ingratiate yourself, getting these high levels and positions, right? And then wait for that, milk that country for all you can get, and then use that country's war and stuff to justify murdering yet another continent or group of people using the resources and stuff that you stole from the people previously.
That was an apostasy. They became an apostate church, and they've never repented for this. They've made some efforts.
Wow.
You know, Pope Francis did go up to northern Italy and literally apologized to the Waldensians for the inhumane way they were treated and asked, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, please forgive us. And that's great. That's
okay. That's
wonderful.
That's good.
Yeah, it is. And John Paul was a very good pope. He had this really heavy on his heart, all of this oppression throughout the centuries. And he really wanted to.
Okay. That's two. Look at this.
And with us for another episode of Secret Jews, Uncovering Hidden Traditions.
Christopher Columbus, again.
If you're a subject matter expert and you've got a message on your heart that could literally change the game for thousands.
This week's episode was Columbus a Secret Jew? Pretty exciting. Stay with us. You're going to hear some very little known information. First, let's go ahead and give our sponsors their due. The Secret Jews of Calabria, Uncovering Jewish Traditions Hidden for Over 500 Years, a wonderful documentary. For more information about how to purchase your own copy or to how to have your group or organization actually host a viewing, visit Rabbi Barbara Aiello. Welcome.
Italia.
Okay, I find it absolutely mortifying that we're going to claim Columbus as one of our own as a Jew, because Columbus is such a problematic character. And
guys, you're seeing a theme of people calling themselves Jews. You're seeing a theme, like a color theme.
Begins the beginning of
this guy can pass for Egyptian too, right?
The European, let's call it the invasion, and in a sense, destruction of the native populations of South America and North America. So I don't know. But on the other hand, that doesn't mean he wasn't a secret Jew. And I know for sure, Rabbi, that there were Marranos or Conversos and secret Jews who made their way with the Spanish conquest to South and North America. There's no question about that. And I'm going to tell you a little bit later about.
Okay, all right.
He joined the old world of Columbus. He wrote something. Believe he is.
As our own, is he hero?
I believe he is. I believe that Anthony Baratta, who is the president of the Order of the Sons and Daughters of Italy in America, he wrote something recently. He said that regardless of what you think about Columbus, he joined the old world of Europe to the new world of what was to become America, and his voyage changed the world forever. So do we claim him as a Jew? Well, when you said that, yes, indeed, I'm going to go back to one little point you made, because you said, yes, indeed, there were Marranos on Columbus's ships. You agreed to that. Well, I would say to you, who's going to let Jews on a ship except another Jew who happened to be captain or organizer of the entire expedition? And so what do we...
Did you hear that? Organizer and expediter. Organizer and what did you say?
Or organizer of the another Jew who happened to be captain or organizer of the entire expedition. And so what do we know about Columbus's background? Well, first of all, we know that his surname was Colon. Colon is a recognizable Spanish and Italian Jewish surname. We believe that he was a secret Jew, and because he worked alongside of fellow Jews during the horrors of the persecution that were brought on by the Inquisition. Also, in an opinion piece on a CNN blog in 2012, an author by the name of Charles Garcia, actually I should call him a historian, he summarized what historians have long suspected and believe now that they've been able to corroborate, and that is that Columbus wrote and spoke in Castilian Spanish, which was Ladino. And when he, in his letters that he wrote, he signed them off with the phrase meaning "with God's help," that only Spanish Jews wrote on their letters as a way of being able to identify one to another. But the most compelling evidence is...
You hear that, guys? With God's help, I can colonize, kill, murder. So this is why, you know, in the Old Testament, they say, well, drive them out with a sword. So this is manifest destiny. So Christopher Columbus was part of manifest destiny, which is just white supremacy, right? This is just white supremacy. This is Christopher Columbus. They've gone down throughout Jamaica and all these different places. This is just white supremacy.
Museum, the Maritime Museum in Genoa, Italy. And there you can see Columbus's manifests from various of the many voyages that he took. And what is the most compelling evidence of all is that when he was evaluating his sailors, who was good, who was bad, who was obedient, who wasn't, he wrote in Hebrew. All of these manifests you can see written in Hebrew with the names of the sailors and how effective they were.
See, and this is what Dr. Brown said. Well, what about the linguistic, you know, the DNA? Like, what do you mean? The DNA from the Nazi DNA, right? The Hitler DNA? Like, he was saying that all these people, he said they're so supposedly mixed, even though it's stupid. Everybody has the same blood and same flesh, right? Doesn't make any sense. But he's trying to make it seem like we're some kind of, like, are you pure? Right? Are you racially pure? Because so-called Dr. Brown used the word race, chosen race. Are you so-called chosen race pure?
Working on the ships. Also, many people believed that what Columbus was doing was he was taking action against the genocide of the Jews, and the Jews.
That's the excuse, guys. Do you believe this stupidity? No, that's not what he was doing. This guy he was saying that he was working. He said, first they're trying to say he was financed, but they said, well, the person who was working in the court of the royal court was supposedly another so-called Jew who helped finance the voyage. Makes no sense. And he's like, well, I can, he's just lackadaisical. Oh, I'll wait. I'll sail after this so-called religious day. Makes no sense. And then some said what he was doing. They're so stupid. I mean, you want to talk about stupid, guys. This is what he was doing. He was actually doing something good. Revisionist history.
Being persecuted at a horrible rate, as we know about the Inquisition.
All that is to overshadow the wicked that he did. And this is what they're doing, even in America. Can we talk about the slavery and the this and that? No, let's talk about the Holocaust. It's like, but no, let's talk about the Holocaust. Can we talk about what's been done to Africa? No, not really. we don't really give a damn, to be honest with you.
And there are historical accounts that say that Columbus and his compatriots would actually pull out of these long processionals Jews that were being taken to be burned in the public square. They would rescue as many as they could, secret them onto the ships, and to take them to the New World. Now, we know that October 12th, 1492 was an important date for two reasons. And of course, the obvious one is the day that Columbus set sail. Actually, it was also the same date the Spanish Jews, by law, were given the choice of accepting forced conversion or leaving Spain, and leaving Spain, or if they remained, they would be arrested. So the fact that that date holds two very important historical events.
Yeah, sounds like some coordination between the three fake Abrahamic faiths, right? So this is just called coordination, guys. Of course, they need a cover and justification for starting something so big, right?
Part of my argument that Columbus was indeed a secret Jew.
Let's be
okay. So there's Columbus. Now let's see this. History of Christopher Columbus. Okay. Let's see what they say here. I'm kind of interested in. Let's listen to this dude first. Let's listen to him listen first.
When we're going to school, we hear about Christopher Columbus, and the weirdest thing about it is that we actually believe that when Christopher Columbus landed in St. Anne and he saw the Arawaks, he was having a conversation with them. You know, Christopher Columbus was an Italian who spoke Spanish. The Arawak, I should say the Taínos spoke Arawak, because Arawak is really the language of the Taínos. But we actually believe that this guy come and say, oh, I like your land. Could you give me a piece of your land? And say, okay, take that part. And say, okay, all right. In the name of King Ferdinand and Isabella, this part is our one. Arawak's your one that. No go so. Them land panel, the thing, when them love the land, them just kill the people, them take with them land and that. And I actually wrote down the words that Columbus said to me. I am Christopher Columbus. Just call me Chris. I am he who did miss the land, India. I thought I'd discover that which was never. How clever of me to see the land beyond. I came to tame and claim in the name of Spain. I am Chris. Don't diss my history.
Well, apparently he didn't really do it in the name of Spain, according to them, right? They say he was financed. They say they was really working for Spain.
I inspired Hawkins, Livingston, Mussolini, Botha, Bush. I exterminated, perpetuated hatred against red men, yellow men. With black men I make no friend. I attack Arawak, cut off their head, wrote instead that the Caribs ate them like bread. I never told you this before, but my chief navigator was a Moor. You know the Moors, they discovered Spain. Those blacks who came from the African terrain. The idea that the world was new, I got from these same blacks in some little Spanish town. Now you may ask, what was blacks doing there? But they ruled us for over 700 years. They made a great mistake then. Instead of enslaving us, they made us their friend. Some survived, stayed alive, fought the invasion, European division, English aggression, the fight between Europe and European expansion. I wrote your history for you. Did not tell you true. Not all black men came as slaves. Listen, you will know the truth in the waves that brought the ships. Lips lie to keep intact. Oppression of black skin, a sin, a myth. I am Chris. The church perched on the opportunity to spread the religion of the dead. True misconception, the assumption that this world was new. The wind blew us to save the earth from beasts like men. Friend, I am not. Blot out the spot that claim they are men like us. I am Christopher Columbus. I gave Europe power over all the earth. 500 years of your blood, sweat, and tears. Now you celebrate. Recreate your debt. Let the glasses touch with the blood of your fathers and mothers. Give a toast. Host my arrival, your dying, my survival. The land is still mine, the Pope is still the divine. Yes, drink your own blood, call it wine. Nothing in the pages of my history will blot out your misery. You shall celebrate my victory. Your children praise me. I am their only history. I am Christopher Columbus. I died, but you made me live. Give me the sea once more. Let me discover you again. The stain, my father's son's rule. Fool, you celebrate my coming. I will not go, not from your mind. Restore me for all to see. Keepers of life, shepherd of my people, lead them to the altars of lies. Your ancestors' cries will not be heard. Word after word, pages of history written. The victims are once more bitten. 1492 to you, the beginning of Western democracy. 1492 to me, the beginning of white supremacy.
I'm Christopher Columbus. Well done. Well done. You know, it brings a new meaning to woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you compass sea and land and make one proselyte, and when you find them, you make them twofold a child of hell, and when you first found them. This is exactly Sicarii. All they do is gender up hatred and divisions, false divisions, not true, not like you can be born again, separated, quote unquote, no longer from of this world, no longer in the world of darkness. No, they wrongly divide. They try to say, I thank God I'm not like other men divide. That's what they do. So this is exactly what they do, right? It's quite amazing. That was good. Now I want to show you something else. So Christopher Columbus was in Jamaica. What was he doing in Jamaica?
Abundance of probate records.
Now we're gonna look at this. This is from the Valley Beat Midrash, right? So you can't see. I'm using sources of people who claim to be Jews, and notice they all seem to look essentially white. And I'm using these records just to show you that they're fake. They're not even Jews. You can have a tradition where you lie to your children and pass down lies. That's people do that. This is what they claim that black people are doing, right? They're claiming the black people are lying, right? These guys are lying too. So, but one group lies different. In fact, let me show you. I'm going to show you the power. I'm going to try to look up on YouTube racism in Israel. Watch this. Racism in, notice, Korea. Now I'm going to hit S. India. Italy. Look, I'm going to scroll down. Now I'm going to cite racism in Israel. Notice. Look at that. You try to look up racism in Israel. It's guess what, guys? It's a shadow ban. It's a word that they don't want you to look up. You can't look up racism in Israel. It's a shadow. There's no auto, right? Look, racism. You can look at racism in. I guess. Does no one search for it? Is that why it's doing that? Okay. Well, racism in Israel doesn't show up. Okay. Maybe I don't want to. Let's not take it too far down. Okay. Let's look at this. Jewish slave owners in Jamaica, right? Christopher Columbus was, y'all.
That may be the only way to really uncover the lives of...
See, this is the thing. See, they try to hide their lies, and see, now they're kind of proud of Christopher Columbus. So that's like, why is this leaking all of a sudden? Because they said people knew it. So why is it coming out? You got to ask yourself why it's coming out. And, this is the thing with this lying, sighing wonder. They'll bring something out just because they want anti-Semitism to increase. Why? Because they profit from it. They literally profit from anti-Semitism. Right? They profit from it. They're, anti-Semitism, time to go steal and kill and rob somebody. So then they get to play that role again. They get to use the ignorant pawns who think they're Jews or not. And then they got those who know who are in the know, but they're fake too. And all based on the guys that, we went to another country and that country, now America's going to fall down. Right?
This local community. So I've been spending the last several years reading wills and trying to reconstruct the history of a whole community based on just those documents.
Wow. So if you ask the average American Jew how many Jews ever lived in Jamaica, they'd say just a few vacationers for vacation. So what's the truth about that?
Well, that's not inaccurate today. Yeah. And today there are about 200 Jews in Jamaica, which actually makes it quite a large Caribbean community. And the community today is made up of an old guard of Portuguese, and there's a lot of Israelis there, and also a lot of people of color who are connected to the community either by having a heritage of having been Jewish, or descended from a Jewish person, or they are attracted to Judaism. So that's the makeup of the community today. In the 18th century, the community reached a peak at around 1,000, which still doesn't seem like a lot. And it was actually smaller than other Caribbean communities. So Curacao and Suriname all had larger Jewish populations in the 18th century. Those were Dutch colonies. But Jamaica alone was bigger than all North America put together. So the communities like...
Jamaica alone was bigger than all North America at that time put together, mind you. Right? How'd they get there? Christopher Columbus.
New York and Philadelphia and Newport and Charleston, which is so heavily in our focus of the early American Jewish experience, really that didn't amount to as many Jews that were in Kingston and Spanish Town together, not to mention all the Jews in the west coast of the island as well.
So that's really the beginning of the story of this region then. So, what is the dynamic in play with Jews and slavery in Jamaica?
Yeah, so this is obviously a huge aspect of what I write about, and the reason I write about this so much is because it was a very conspicuous aspect of the wills. As I was reading the wills, you find that that slave populations are being bequeathed en masse, and in that they're being named individually, and also you see a lot of evidence, sometimes very direct and articulate, of concubinage or relationships, sexual relationships with women of color, both enslaved and free, and.
So sexual relationships with women of color, concubinage with women of color, both enslaved and free. But they're trying to argue. So let me get this right. So in Germany, Hitler said what? In Germany, Hitler said... Well, let's look at this. Let's look at this now. We listen to this. It talked about this. It says, listen... Negroes of Egypt and Canaan corroborate all that's said above, and we speak to them as being great of flesh, whose mischievous manners had corrupted the women of the Jews to such a degree that many of them have made themselves images of men in imitation of the Egyptian images. And he's talking about these Egyptian images, and he's talking about the meaning of the word great of flesh as used by prophet Ezekiel in reference to Egyptian Negroes. Egyptian Negroes. So okay, so they're supposedly, this is way back. They was with the Egyptian Negroes. They say they can pass for the Egyptian, but the Egyptian Negroes could pass for white, right? Because, I mean, this is when they're there, right? Because how could they be with Jewish women if this is when they were there? How could they pass for white if they talk writing about them as being with Egyptian Negroes? Doesn't sound like somebody don't know what they sounds like somebody's stupid and they think you're stupid, right? So they're going to try to change it now. See, they're trying to change up their story. Now you say, well, wait a minute. Now there's something don't make sense now. Let's do this. Let's go back up. Let's go towards the beginning of this book. Let me see something. Okay, let's do this. Let's see. Okay. Now, here, it's talking about Egypt. Listen. And when they're trying to talk about Egypt, yeah. Egyptians, whose flesh, says Ezekiel, was as the flesh of asses. And then it says, simple as follows, that between the sexual members of the Negro man and the brute beast called the ass, there was but little difference as to the elongation and magnitude. Look, if this passage was not to be understood, then it will follow that the Egyptian Negroes, right, and consequently the whole Negro race are not human. Here you go. Egyptian Negroes and the whole Negro race are not human. Are not human. So, see, guys, see... All right, so we have here the supposedly Jewish women. So if this is the case, guys, that all these Jewish women were sleeping with these Egyptian Negroes, then there should be a whole heap. Think about it. Supposedly, now, because Dr. Brown says don't make an allegory out of Egypt representing children of flesh and bondage. Okay, so let's not make an allegory out of it. But they say, well, if you don't make an allegory out of it, how are we going to glory in the flesh? Okay, we're going to have to make Egypt white. Okay. But the problem is they got people talking about Egypt as being what? Black in the past. This is the problem. And some of the people they got them painted as black is like, let's see. Let's see if we can find something here. I don't know if I can find it. I'm gonna keep going. Let me see if I can keep going. I think I gotta go to the top. Sorry, y'all. I have to go to the top. My bad. Let me just go scroll like this, y'all. Okay. We go here. See, so a lot of people don't seem to understand. And you gotta understand these people who are writing about this. And they're talking about the Negro race. Negro race. And when they talk about the Negro race, African Negro man, right? They keep talking about it. They're talking about them going to Africa, Greek historian, Africa, Dr. Shaw, region of Africa, universal traveler. So they're talking about all this stuff. And a time cannot obliterate the distinctive traces of national original character stamped on the first races of man. They're talking about these supposedly doctors, Egypt, Palestine, Holy Land, right? He says in regard to the people of Ethiopia who are now and have been for 23,000 years a mixed people, mixed with Arab of copper colored race, and though by their language, listen, it is impossible for distinguish one from another, yet to their physiological qualities and features and form, they are easily distinguished from the Arab blood, however intimate the mixture might be, which no length of time can obliterate, the Negro blood appearing as palatable as it does when mixed with the whites. This author, everywhere in his work, respecting the ancient people of Egypt and the other countries of Africa, carefully distinguished the Negro man or Negro race from the other dark races and tribes having the woolly head. Listen. Respecting the ancient people of Egypt and the other countries of Africa, carefully distinguishes the Negro man or race from other dark races and tribes not having woolly head and the other characteristics of the family of man. Yet they're talking about the Egyptian Negro. As to the other dark races of the earth, not mixed with Negro blood, we have built little to do in this work. Okay, so he says they did little to do in this work. But it's so funny because when they talk about this, they're talking about Negroes. I just find it so hilarious. And they talk about Negroes as being Egyptians. That's what's so funny. I'm going to keep on going. They talk about more stuff down here. I want to find something for you guys. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. It's talking about Ham, the Copts of Egypt. Okay, here. So they're getting into this. And they talk about the Mizraim. First of all, it's still in the veil of Nile, as admitted by the Greek and Romans, as well as by Jew and Egyptian in every age. The earliest Egyptian, says Josephus, were called Mizrahites, and the country where they dwell, Mizar, as well as one of the first cities, was called Memphis. And talking about names and appellations derived from the name of the first settlers or head of the family, who led a party of clan of colony, the semi-flats of the Nile, before any other people after the flood. And then talks about Josephus, when speaking of the Mizraim, calls him the first king of Memphis, which, as above supposed, was the first city of ancient Egypt, and therefore might well allude to the first king of the country. But how does this fact assist us in finding out that the meaning of the word Ham? It goes into Ham, first Egyptian, was called Copts, demonstrated. Talking about blah blah Ham. Man. You're going to keep on going down, y'all. Okay. Thus, we have shown, therefore, the very name of the youngest son of Noah is evidence of no small account that he was born a Negro. All the physical, moral, and constitutional traits which mark and distinguish the race of men from the other two races. Okay? Other two races, okay? You see, getting into the Negro race, the curse of Ham stuff, right? The meaning of the word Ethiopia signifies blackness. Accounting the color of its first inhabitants. Even the word Negro is derived from the Hebrew word Niger and signifies black. Right? Niger is a great river in Africa. Okay. The word Negro, and applied it to the race of Ham and no other people. So he's saying Negro is applied to Ham and no other people. Now, what's the problem with that? Negro is applied to Ham and no other people. Okay. All right. Listen. And smote all the firstborn in Egypt, the chief of their strength, in the tabernacles of Ham. So Egypt has to be Ham. Egypt has to be black. Right? According to their own writings. Firstborn of Egypt, the firstborn, not second, third, fourth, the firstborn of Egypt, the chief of their strength, in the tabernacles of Ham. He comes here and he says, listen. Even the word Negro is derived from the Hebrew word Niger and signifies black. Niger is a great river in Africa and was thus originally named on account of black men having first settled the countries of that river, and hence arose from the earliest time the word Negro and applied to the race of Ham and no other people. Egypt, the firstborn. Then it says, Canaan was the name of the brother of the sons. Then it was from the sons of Phoenicians, Tyrians, and Zidonians, land of Canaan, Phoenicia, etc. Anyway, so we can see that. I want to just show you guys where it's clearly that they're calling so-called black people Egyptians. I just want you to see that. Now that you've seen that, what else am I going to show you guys? Let's see. I think that's it. I think that's it, guys. Oh, no, that's actually not it. Okay. So, now that we've gone through all the duplicitous lies and all the stuff, you're like, because you got to ask yourself, well, why is Dr. Brown lying so much? Why are these people like, why are they doing all this stuff? The Bible tells you they're greedy. They're greedy. They want money. They're liars. They hate God, right? And this is why they don't convert anybody. Remember how we read in the book of Esther how in 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia, many of the people of the land became Jews in one day, meaning they were born again and they entered his rest? Well, you got to ask yourself a couple of questions. Look, they want money. And instead of it being, Christ died for your sins, here's what these guys say. They say stuff like this. Listen to what he says. They're trying to tell that the whole world hates them because they're God's chosen people. Listen. And this is a liberal guy.
Discovered that the Jews all along were correct, and they can't understand Jewish suffering. And they identify Jewish suffering with two issues. Number one, we suffered as a result of the way the Germans behaved, as an example. The Europeans treated us. And number two, they realized that Jewish suffering brought them closer to God.
So Jewish suffering brought them closer to God. Jewish suffering brought them closer to God. Jewish suffering, if our weapons aren't carnal, it says the children of the bondwoman, children of the flesh, persecute them as born after the spirit. How long must we suffer your disbelief, your unbelief? Because we have to suffer we're patient, and so we have to suffer through your lies to teach you the truth. That's what it's talking about. Jewish suffering brought you closer to God because we're persecuted for the truth, because you guys, the flesh lusts against the spirit, and they in the flesh can't please God. We're suffering. So he's a liar there, of course. See, that's what I'm saying. These guys they're constantly lying, just constantly lying. Now let's get back to, he's talking about Jewish suffering. And since he's doing that, well, since he's going to relegate in the Jewish suffering, I want to make sure we get back to Jewish suffering.
Incorporating their children and to some extent into the family through voluntary inheritance. So that all made me realize that we need to address the issue of Jewish slave ownership. Over time, I've also realized that this has been the subject of competing tendencies. One coming from a anti-Jewish position like the Nation of Islam that wanted to make the case that Jews were overly represented.
How are you anti-Jewish if you guys are down there screwing so-called black people, and supposedly the Egyptians were black, and the so-called Jewish women were getting screwed by the black men? Didn't they say you have a Jewish mom? Well, these people, these women, they didn't say they were getting raped. They said they were just falling in love with the black man, right? They fell in love with the black man.
Slave trade and were overly abusive to slaves, and that's not true. In fact, it's kind of puzzling why Jews weren't more involved in the slave trade, since it was a totally open type of endeavor that had no guilds or protections like that.
Had no guilt or protections. Why were we more involved? That's just a sterling resume.
And Jews owned slaves to the same extent that everybody else did, so there were no particular...
Again, sterling resume.
Now, this stands in contrast to...
It stands in contrast to what's taught in schools.
A rival kind of mentality where Jews must have treated their slaves better. Because how could you be sitting at a Passover Seder saying we were once slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt while being served by slaves?
How could you do it? Because they say they're Jews and they're not, maybe?
But people did that. Yeah. And so some scholars reached an apologetic conclusion in the 20th century saying that Jews manumitted their slaves more readily or treated them better. And I find that no position is really captures.
He's saying some scholars say it. He's basically saying I find no cap. He's basically saying these scholars are lying. Because think about it. These fools trying to claim that they're so righteous. And they had slaves and they had concubines and they were screwing all kinds of women. Screwing everything that moved. Hey, dog, stay still.
Truth. So in fact, I crunched the numbers in my wills and I found that slaves were about 11 times more likely to be bequeathed than they were to be freed by Jews. So it's very uncommon.
So fake Jews were less likely to free you as a slave. 11 times less likely to free you. That's just the light to all nations.
Actually free manumit slaves. And there are cases of Jewish abuse of slaves. And
Really?
then there are plenty
so?
of cases of manumissions. In one case, he manumits
okay, I don't want to hear it.
As well. But Jews are like everybody else.
Right.
There are some abusive slave owners, and there are...
They're like everybody else, because everybody else gets 38 billion, gets to claim they're a chosen race, claims there are people above all people that dwell upon the face of the earth, claim that you're anti-Semitic if you don't support their theft and robbery. Okay.
And there's...
I agree, there's sinners that need to be saved. So they're like every other child of the flesh.
Own slaves because that's what's done in the colony that they live in. Yeah.
So if it's the case that Jews were more or less following the same patterns as anyone else living in that area, is it your understanding that that's the same case for the Jewish North in North America and the Jewish South in North America, that essentially they operate no different than those in...
Okay, now the question is, what about North America? Because you talked about how initially Jamaica was bigger than all of the developed or the colonized parts of North America. How do they operate in North America? Or do they just have slavery in Jamaica?
Yeah, I think that's where we are in the scholarship on this issue right now. And there's some new scholarship coming out, especially focused on Suriname, where Jews had a whole plantation community of their own, autonomous Jewish plantation village called Yoden Savannah, where they enslaved thousands of Africans. So there's been a lot of new...
Listen, there's a good chance somebody's trying to hack your website right now. You gotta make sure.
There's been a lot of new research, and I think where we are writ large is that the Jews show no particularity in their slave ownership than anybody else. And that's true in the American South as well. And there were, proportionally to the numbers, because there were more Jews living in the North at the time of the Civil War, but proportionately there was as much support for the Southern cause among Jews as there were for, as there was for the cause of the North.
So Jews were for not freeing people. That makes sense because they 11 times less likely to man you met.
And ironically, the rabbinate was quite split on the issue of emancipation of slaves. And, you know, so in one case, Morris Raphael in New York wrote a very famous piece, an editorial, where he defended slavery because, after all, the Bible endorses slavery, and the Bible actually...
No, the Bible didn't. The Bible, what the Bible is saying, it says, you're either a master, you either have a master, you're either a slave to sin and death, or you're, quote unquote, you serve, quote unquote, God. You can't have two masters, so you'll love one and hate the other. So that's what I'm talking about. The Bible doesn't, quote unquote, endorse slavery. You're just a liar. It's just the Bible endorses you being in God who can't sin.
Sets out very clear parameters by which a Jew should own slaves, or how a Jew should own slaves.
This is why you can't trust these fools with the scriptures, guys. See, this is this is Christopher Columbus. These fools can't be trusted with the scriptures. They really can't. Such liars. But what are you gonna do? You think the black Hebrew Israelites are gonna somehow convince them? No, of course not. They're gonna do exactly what this guy's doing. Well, we did it, but
that was opposed by, he was more of the Orthodox, you may call, spectrum, or a supporter of like Isaac Leeser type of Judaism in America, whereas the Reform took a more progressive policy towards that. And so people like, I think his name was Bernard Felsenthal in Chicago, and famous...
All right, guys, you want to listen to this? It's horrible. it's horrible. They was out there raping and all kinds of stuff, having slaves and all kinds of stuff. So, okay, that's horrible. Now, here's another question. They've proven that they're out here and they're just doing all this stuff, right? And they're using the Holocaust. I mean, they talk about sucking the mileage out of something. They're using the Holocaust. Jeez, I mean, you're talking about riding something for money. I mean, they're just exploiting that to death. Okay, listen to this guy. He's basically gonna blame the world for his girlfriend's death. He's gonna blame the world for his suffering, right? His so-called suffering. He's not gonna blame the individuals. He's gonna blame. Imagine you tried to blame the so-called all the Jews. Listen to the verbiage he uses.
53 verse 9 through 12, God is speaking. So the speaker changes 3 times, and also a different speaker in 52, 13 through 15. Same concept, different speakers.
And the last verse, verse 12, it says that he bore the sins of many. Do you think this is Israel?
Yes, for sure.
It says that he bore the sins of many. Do you think this is Israel?
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
You know, the scriptures say they're not all Israel who are of Israel. And it's just saying, well, there's Israel of the flesh who are not the Israel of God and can't even please God. And there's Israel of the promise who are born of the incorruptible seed, the word of God that lives in the body forever.
It says that he bore the sins of many. Do you think this is Israel?
Yes, for sure. Yes, the Jewish...
It says that he... Israel.
To your question, the Jewish people suffered. We bore the bad behavior of the nations of the world. That's correct.
But what...
The Jewish people suffered. We bore the bad behavior of the nations of the world. That's correct.
But what does it mean?
Speaking aloud.
Okay. All right. So that's what he's saying. He's trying to blame the whole world now. You think with all that, you know, and I just read to you in Esther how in 127 provinces people were converted, India to Ethiopia. What's the end goal, guys? What's the end goal? I'm gonna play this for you. Let's do this. Let me show you this. Remember, even the lying sign and wonder, Dr. Michael Brown said we're a race. What they're trying to get to without the obeying his voice, because they don't believe what God said. They want to get to this part where they deceive you into thinking that, well, God chose them to be a holy race unto the Lord thy God. The Lord had chosen thee to be a special race unto himself, above all races of people that are upon the face of the earth. Right? This is what they want to believe. This is what they want to do. They want to believe this, that they're a holy race above all people under the face of the earth. That's what they want to believe. You say, can you prove that to me? Can you prove they want to be a race above all races? Yes. Listen to this. Listen to this. Does this guy talking about converting you? No. Listen to him.
The world become Jewish. Should everybody in the world become Jewish? Is that a utopian dream? No, it's not.
No, you don't need to be converted. Because I'm a natural white Ashkenazi Jew. Right? So you don't need to be converted.
God doesn't make mistakes. Back in the olden days, there were 70 nations, and God chose one nation to be Jewish. Obviously, that's enough. It would be really ridiculous to even suggest that the vast majority of human beings are not what they're meant to be. There are Jews and there are non-Jews, and that's how it must be. The world began with non-Jews. The human race, for the first 2,000 years, was purely non-Jews.
For the first 2,000 years, it was non-Jews. That's a lie, because it says that you must be born again, and salvation's of the Jews. That's like saying nobody got saved. It just explains that the true Jew is the spirit. We are the circumcision, worship God in spirit, rejoice in Christ, had no confidence in flesh.
And they were given commandments.
Yeah, we got the law as a schoolmaster to bring us unto Christ, and we have the gospel.
The conclusion we have to come to is that as far as earth is concerned, you don't need Jews. Certainly don't need to be Jewish. Now there's a question of how much of God can we introduce into the world?
How much of God can we introduce into the world? I want you to think about this foolishness. They don't care. Remember, love not the world nor the things in the world. Right?
Judaism.
Now they've made themselves the new pope. They're the new pope. That's why they wear the stupid hat.
About bringing more of God into the world.
Remember, it said through our Jewish suffering, people are closer to God. We bring more of God into the world. But they haven't been born again.
The ultimate revelation of God to his creation was the event at Sinai. That's where God said, I am present on earth. Don't come to heaven, I will come to you.
He said, flesh and blood cannot inherit nor enter the kingdom of God. You must be born again to get in heaven. And you can't be born of flesh nor of blood, nor the will of man, but of God's Spirit.
That idea is the Jew's responsibility. But
to preach the gospel, which he said, no, you don't need to become a Jew. You don't need to be converted. So he's a double talking liar.
Principle, everyone can do that. But over time, instead of bringing God into the world, people started thinking, I got to bring myself to heaven. Because if there's a better place, why put your effort into this place? Judaism maintained its purpose. We're not here to get to heaven. We're here to bring heaven down to earth, or make earth more heavenly.
Boy, that Zionism. I told you these devils are slick. These devils are that's a slick devil there, boy. That's a slick devil.
So when we behave ourselves, when we follow the rules, we're bringing the world closer to God. When we study God's commandments, when we study His Torah, when we think His thoughts, when we get to know Him, that's bringing Him down to the world.
Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu.
It can, it will, and it's our job to make it happen.
Okay. Boy, I don't think I can take it anymore. You just heard them lies. I'm gonna let it go at that, guys. How long is this? 2 hours and 55 minutes. That's a long one. I hope you guys understand. I know that will you get through this? Probably not. Maybe look at it, part of it, look at it some other time. It's just amazing how these lies, I mean, you can see it all the way. So they've been doing this throughout it's like Jesus said. Jesus like, your father, the devil, used murder from the beginning and both not the truth. So it's just people been lying, this fake group of people claiming they're the remnant of God that perish. And Jesus like, my sheep never perish, children of flesh aren't children of God. He's like, they're just fake. They just say there's something they're not, but they're just coordinated over time, right? Because it's a scam. That's why. I'm gonna go at that.